Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto neglected by konoha Acnologia. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by MedrickLanster and link in the description and support writer. Let's start the video. An unexpected reunion. Acnologia watches the scene below him in morbid fascination as Tenro Island completely vanishes thanks to his breath attack. Acnologia was a truly terrifying beast to behold. He was around 50 meters tall. The top half of his body was covered in black armored scales. He had 4 horns protruding from the sides of his head extending backward. The front of his head was round and blunt, his eyes were wide and beady, his mouth housed razor-sharp teeth, and his chin protruded into the shape of an arrowhead. His wings were black and had a feathery appearance to them, like a bird's. His underbelly, inner tail, and legs were all a dull gray color. His tail was long and ended in the shape of sharp dual-pronged stinger. The most distinguishing feature was the blue tribal markings that covered the top half of his body. The black dragon had originally come to the island, sensing the black mage, Zeref, was on it. He wanted to kill the worthless human for the sins committed against him 400 years ago. Sadly, fate was not too kind as Zeref had disappeared already, but he did get something out of this trip. He found a wizard guild on the island. And of all the guilds, it had to be the one founded by that brat Mavis. Plus he saw the human he fought a few months ago too. Now that he thinks about it, only one of Mavis's brats would have the guts to face him in mortal combat. Though fight would be the biggest understatement since it only lasted for about 3 minutes. Still, for a human to last that long, deserves some praise. It was one of the reasons he spared him and not outright killed him on the spot. Now he had several other mages to have fun with. They even had 3 dragon slayers. Well, 4 if that artificial one was included. Unfortunately, he soon saw that these dragon slayers were laughably weak. Compared to the slayers and mages of his age, these guys were pathetic. Then again, none of these mages ever experienced war, so it was kinda expected that none will have the capacity that the others had. Plus it looked like they were recovering from a fierce battle, but even that factor would not have changed the outcome much. However, he did get some entertainment from the master of the guild. Being able to increase to his height and be able to hold him off for so long for his children to escape was an impressive feat. However, surprise, surprise, the brats ignored his plea and came back at full force, engaging Acnologia in combat. The dragon had to mentally shake his head at this. Why was he not surprised? Humanity really was one stubborn species. No matter how hard you put them down, they just keep coming back up like roaches. Though he must admit these humans were entertaining him more than he had anticipated. Hell, the 3 dragon slayers managed to push him into the sea. This piqued his interest ever slightly, and he decided to test the brats and see if they would be worthy of his attention in the future. He rose from the sea and prepared to launch a breath attack upon them. The mages then began gathering their magic energy together when his attack was launched. At the last moment, a sphere appeared blocking the attack. However, the collision caused a massive explosion to erupt from the chain reaction. Now as Acnologia looks at the emptiness where the island once stood, he senses a large mana signature below the surface of the sea. The dragon chuckles in amusement. So they survived, huh? Those humans are a tenacious bunch, I will give them that. He looks around, but he could no longer sense Zeref. The dragon growls at this since he was hoping to end that immortal's miserable existence for good, but it seems he was having too much fun. Oh well, it wasn't a total loss. He got to have a little fun. Something he hasn't had in a very long time. He decided it was time to leave and return to his lair on Mount Zonia. He flaps his large, black wings and sets off to the horizon. While he flies back home, he remembers a time when he was once human like everyone else. One that fraught with the same tenacity and loyalty for his fellow comrades. He was loud, brash, and idiotic like that fire dragon slayer. But he was betrayed by the very people he fought for, and those he thought he could trust just left him behind as he was slowly tortured and rotted away until he was finally executed. What was his name? It had been so long that he became forgetful of his old name. He had gained so many names throughout the centuries. Acnologia. Pinslayer. The Dragon King. The Black Dragon of the Apocalypse. The Dragon Slayer King. The symbol of fear. Brackle, the Dragon. Avatar of Destruction. The Black Dragon in the Book of Apocalypse. These were all just a few of the names that he acquired in the 400 years he's been alive. But his human name? He hadn't used that in a very long time. What was it again? Ruto. Nato. Menma. Naruto. Naruto. That was his name. Naruto Uzumaki, future Hokage of Konoha, believe it. He chuckles in amusement as he remembers his old catchphrase. That was what he used to scream at everyone. It was his idea that if he became the Hokage, then everyone will begin to look up to him. It was only when he was imprisoned that he realized how foolish that dream really was. They would never accept him no matter what he did for them, they would always see him as a demon. A monster. Which was really ironic, considering what he is now. Plus, needing to become the strongest to get everyone to see you and accept you was a foolish goal. People either saw the real you from the very beginning, or they saw what they wanted to see. Sadly, only one person saw him for what he truly was. A sad little boy that wanted to be accepted, to be loved. The one girl that did this for him, but he never noticed, or was it that he couldn't accept her? She was the only one to try and visit him in prison for comfort and not to scorn him. It was when she confessed her love to him that he felt truly happy in a very long time and at peace at his impending doom. They made a promise to one another on that day that they swore to honor for the rest of their lives. Sadly, Naruto or Acnologia now had long forgotten that promise after everything he went through in his second life. He wondered how the girl's life was and if she was strong like she promised she would become. Part of him wishes he could see her again, but he had no way of going back to his old world on his own. Perhaps one of the dragons would help him. However, he rid himself of that idea as quickly as it came. None of the dragons, nor any of their allies, would help him with anything he asked of them. Especially after the slaughter he caused 400 years ago. He won't deny that part of him enjoyed the death and destruction he caused, but not all of it was his fault. However, it was pointless to argue who's to blame and regret. He did wonder though why none of the elders or the deities of the dragon race have done anything to stop him. Perhaps going to them, he may get an answer. However, before he could allow himself to ponder any further, a flash of light appears before him, blinding his line of sight. He growls at whoever is foolish enough to surprise him. Who dares come before Acnologia, the Dragon King? Acnologia got no answer as the light got brighter before it envelops his entire form. When Acnologia finally regains his sight, he sees nothing but an endless, white void around him. He growls in annoyance. Who has called me here? Show yourself, you coward. Who the hell are you? You look like an overgrown lizard. Roared a voice behind him. He looks behind and is shocked at who was yelling at him. The first person was a woman with a slender and feminine build. She stood at 5'4". She had blood, red hair that went down to her ankles with 2 shoulder-length bangs on each side of her face. There was one black hair clip on the left side of her head. She had violet eyes and a light skin complexion. She was wearing a high-collar white blouse under a loose-fitting green dress. She looked rather annoyed. The other was a tall tan man that stood at 5'9". He had spiky blonde hair. His eyes were a deep shade of blue. He wore a long-sleeved blue sweatshirt with 2 red swirls on the sides of his arm. On top of that, he wore a light green vest with 6 pockets on the front. The most noticeable attire he had on was the white short-sleeved cloak with the fire patterns at the bottom. The man was trying to calm the woman down. The third shocked him the most and who he paid the most attention to. She was standing at 5'4". She wore a light lavender, sleeveless kimono-style blouse that was tied with a violet obi around her waist. She had short dark navy pants with thigh-high stockings, along with black high-heel boots. Her hair was a dark blue with a Heim cut at the front while reaching past her waist. She had 2 bangs that reached her chin. The most noticeable thing was her eyes, they were pupilless and had a hint of lavender in them. The last occupant was a giant orange fox with 9 tails. His eyes never losing track of the dragon in front of him. Acnologia could not believe what he was seeing. Before him were Kushina Uzumaki, Minato Namikaze, Hinata Hyuga, and the Kyuubi or Kurama as he told him before he died. The black dragon thought someone was playing some sick joke with him. Well, he was not in the mood for mind games. He opens his wings out and began to release his magical power in his rage, which puts everyone on guard. Alright, you had your fun. Now show yourself, you damn cowards. I am in no mood for your trickery, now reveal yourselves. Hey, I was talking to you, you overgrown garden lizard. Listen to me when I am talking to you, Tebane. Kushina screamed. Acnologia turns to look at Kushina with an annoyed scowl appearing on his face before pointing one of his claws at her. I have nothing to say to you, woman. Go take your blonde idiot of a husband and go fuck each other's brains out till you die. Since that is all you two can do, right? Fucking and dropping dead. Minato's and Hinata's jaws dropped at the insult, while Kurama was doing his best to bite back the laughter that was going to erupt. That all stopped when they all felt a dark aura and turned to see that Kushina was not amused at all. In fact, she was pissed off in every sense of the word. Her hair was split into 9 tails and her face and eyes were red like her hair. She was out for blood and bloody hell she will get it spilled. You bastard. Let's see if you can insult me after I have you caged down. She screamed at him. Suddenly several golden chains erupted from her body heading straight for him. Knowing exactly what those chains can do, Acnologia takes to the air and begins evading them as much as possible to not get captured. Your chains may be able to capture a Bijuu, but let me make some things clear. I am no lizard, I am a dragon. Second, I am no Bijuu, so those chains are nothing more than a nuisance to me. He roared at her. Kushina got even more annoyed, but before she could retort, however, a massive chakra pulse causes Kushina and Acnologia to pause as they both turn to see Hinata glaring at both of them with great intensity, with her Byakugan activated. Both of you, that's enough. We are in the middle of nowhere, and what do the two of you do? Acting like two children having a temper tantrum. Kushina, I know you're mad at his insults, I get that, but you need to let this go. For all we know, he could be equal to if not greater than Kurama. That's debatable, Hinata, Kurama growled. Hinata turned to glare back at Kurama in annoyance. Whatever. We need to calm down and think this through. Can we all please do that? She urged to everyone. No one argued with her before she turned to the dragon above them. Dragon-sama, may you please come down to talk? I promise you, we mean no harm. So can we please talk in a civilized manner and find a way out of here? Acnologia looked at the girl in wonder. This was not the same girl he had seen before his execution. Looks like she has kept her promise to me after all. He thought in amusement. Alright Hinata-chan, we will talk. Hinata, feeling a little unnerved by the way she was addressed, nodded. Kushina and Minato were also concerned and a little weary with how familiar this dragon seems to be with them. Dragon-sama, how did you know Hinata-san's name? Plus how did you know that Kushina and I were married? Minato asked with a calculating gaze. You also knew what a Bijuu was and that Kushina's chains can affect them. How do you know so much about us, since there are no dragons in our dimension world? Kurama demanded in a suspicious tone. Everyone turns their attention to the dragon before them. Said dragon was debating what he should say. He decided to have fun with it for a bit. The reason I know so much is that I was once a resident of your world. This surprised everyone since they would have heard something of a black dragon roaming around the elemental nations. How? There were no dragons in our world as far as I know. Are there? Minato asked as Kurama and Hinata shook their heads. The reason you've never seen me is that I was once a human before I became the form you see before you now. A human you all know very well. That threw them for a loop. He was human before a human they all knew. But this left the question. What human did Kurama, Hinata, Minato, and Kushina know? The former two were feeling a pit forming in their stomach as they thought longer about what the dragon said. Acnologia looked at the girl and gave her a fanged smile that increased her anxiety tenfold. You changed a lot more than I expected, Hinata Hyuga. You are no longer that shy girl I once knew that could barely utter a complete sentence. Hinata took a step back, the pit she was feeling was growing even more. The same could be said for Kurama. It can't be him. Please don't let it be him. Hinata thought. Is this really you? Have you become the monster that stands before me? Kurama sadly thought. Minato and Kushina were still unsure, but they were also feeling a pit forming for them. What is this feeling of dread that is coming over me? The two thought. Hinata gulped before asking the question that will confirm this fear of hers. How do you know so much about me? How do you know I was so shy before? Acnologia tilted his head to the girl. I know you because you promised me the day before my execution that you would change and become the strongest kunoichi in your village. It was also when you confessed your undying love for me. Does that ring any bells? Acnologia retorted. It did ring some bells. Hinata took several steps back before covering her mouth. Her eyes wide as tears fell from them. Kurama was looking at Acnologia with both shock and sadness. And Naruto-kun? She asked. Minato and Kushina snapped their heads between the girl and the dragon. Hinata, what did you say? Minato shakingly asked. He hoped he heard wrong. His wife was also shaking, hoping this was all a nightmare. Hinata did not turn to them and instead focused on Acnologia. Are you Naruto-kun? She asked again. Acnologia simply sighed before looking at her again. Yes. I am Acnologia, the Dragon King. The Black Dragon of the Apocalypse. But when I was human, a shinobi. I was known as Naruto Uzumaki. The last Jinchuriki of Kurama, the Kyuubi no Yoko. The occupants just looked at him in shock, sorrow, and horror. The latter being Minato and Kushina. Hinata took several steps before she was in front of him. She slowly puts her hand on his snout and gently rubs it. Naruto-kun, she said quietly. Acnologia would never say it, but he was enjoying the girl's soft hands on him. They were so warm and comforting. It reminded him of Anna and the others. He decided to play nice with her. Acnologia's body began glowing brightly, which made Hinata pause and take a step back. Everyone was shocked as he continued to shrink and his feature changed until they became more human. He continued to shrink until he was about the same height as Hinata, if not slightly taller. When the light died down, the sight before them shocked them for a new loop. Where Acnologia once stood now was a man with a well-defined face and a chiseled chest littered with several scars around his torso and arms. His only form of clothing were black baggy pants and a black cloak. He had a necklace of fangs around his neck. He had spiky blonde hair like Minato's. He had slitted eyes with the deepest shade of blue that anyone had seen. The most striking feature was the 3 whisker marks on each of his cheeks. It was Naruto Uzumaki. A much older Naruto Uzumaki. The man looked at the girl in front of him before slowing putting a hand on her cheek. This startled the girl before she allowed the warmth of his hand to fill her. "I have missed you, Hinata," he said softly. Tears began to fill her eyes and Hinata soon began to cry before enveloping him in a hug. This shocked him before he reluctantly but slowly returned the hug. Naruto-kun sob, Naruto-kun sob. "You're back. Sob, I thought, sob, I would never see you again. Sob, I missed you so much." Naruto simply hugged the girl and let her vent it all out. He wanted to enjoy this reunion. Because for the first time in a long time he was content and happy. The family quarrel and the unexpected arrivals. Naruto held on to Hinata for what seemed like hours, but he didn't mind at all. He wanted to let the girl vent out all her pent-up emotions for him. Plus, he enjoyed the warmth coming off of her, it was really intoxicating. It was like sitting next to a huge fireplace. It was warm and comforting. It was really an amazing feeling. And her scent. Kami, her scent was something else. It reminded him of lavender mixed with honey. The two were melded together so perfectly that his nose felt like it was in paradise. Seriously, how more desirable could this girl get for him? She was perfect in every sense of the word. Beautiful inside and out, strong-willed, and without a hint of malice to her unless you're her enemy. She was a goddess, plain and simple. Just like Anna and Irene were his goddesses, once upon a time. Returning from his daydreams, he looks down to see that the girl's crying had diminished to soft sobbing, but he can hear her say something, but it was too muffled to understand a word. Looking at the other occupants, he sees Kurama watching the scene with an amused expression on his face. Naruto had to fight the urge to roll his eyes. He hadn't changed at all. He was still the same smug, sneaky bastard he remembered. He turned to the other 2 occupants and saw his parents watching the scene in shock. His mother was shaking while covering her mouth with her hands, while his father was just too shocked to say or do anything. He decided he needed to address the other occupants, so he looks down at the girl before cupping her face with his hands and brings it up so she was looking right at Naruto. The two stare at one another for some time before he spoke. "Hinata." "Yes, Naruto-kun?" she asked softly. "While this reunion is heartwarming and very welcomed, we need to figure out how we came here." Hinata nodded. Naruto used his thumbs to wipe the last of the tears in her eyes before walking toward the other 3, with Hinata close behind. Naruto walks towards the other occupants at a leisurely pace. Meanwhile, Minato and Kushina were a nervous wreck. They had no idea how they came here. One minute they were in the afterlife and then there was a flash of light and they were here in this white void with Hinata and the Kyuubi. They were about to accuse the Kyuubi of being the cause, but Hinata quickly diffused the potential fight that was about to erupt between the two sides as she quickly explained that the Kyuubi had nothing to do with them being teleported here. Then the black dragon suddenly appears and the pair finds out that it's their son. How? How did their son become a dragon? The better question is what happened to him and what's his relationship with Hinata? Not to mention, why did they feel like their son hated them? That left a cold pit in their stomachs at the thought. Just what happened to their son? As the aforementioned boy no man approached, they wondered what he would say or do to them. Will he hug or attack them? However, Naruto did neither of the two. Naruto just walks right past them and not even acknowledging them and continues until he is right below the Kyuubi. "It's good to see you, Kurama. It has been a very long time." Kurama smiles. "Yes, I guess for you it has been a long time. For me, it's been 8 to 9 years. Still, I'm glad to see your ugly mug again, kid. I see death has not changed your smart mouth, you baka kitsune. But I still missed you." Kurama snorted. "Please compared to your vixen, our reunion isn't that great. Oh by the way, how did your vixen feel? You got an up-close experience with her assets, how was it?" Hinata was blushing madly at the question that the Kyuubi asked Naruto. Naruto's answer just made it worse. "They were soft, warm, and comforting. Overall best feeling I've had in a long time." Hinata was by this point reaching atomic levels of red before covering her face with her hands as steam blew out of her head. Kurama snorted before he began laughing like a maniac. His laughter echoing throughout the void. "Ahahahaha. Aw man, I really do miss these conversations with your kid. You always made them entertaining. Never a dull moment with you." Naruto smirked, "I wouldn't be me if I wasn't unpredictable." Kurama then shifted to a serious expression before looking at Minato and Kushina, then looking back down at Naruto. "Aside from the fun and games, Naruto. I think you have to settle some things and this is as good as time as any." Naruto sighed. He knew he was right. He couldn't avoid this, no matter how much he wanted to. It was time to bury this part of his past for good. He nodded before turning around and walking to the two sources of his past. His parents. The same ones that decided it was a smart idea to seal the Kurama in him and leave him with the most irresponsible adults to watch over him and a village that wanted his blood. Blood that they kept trying to take for nearly 13 years. Many times they nearly succeeded, but Kurama healed him from his near-death beatings. Then there was also the Sandaime Hokage, who did jack shit when it came to helping him. All he did was sent the mobs that hunted him to INT, but they always got out and came right back to hunting him. All because the useless old man could do nothing against the civilian and shinobi councils. The clan heads were also just as useless. Don't even get him started on Kakashi, Jiraiya, and Tsunade. The less said, the better. He stops his train of thought as he was about a meter away from them before standing still. He continues to look at them with the blankest expression any human being or dragon could produce. He almost looked like a statue, which worried Minato and Kushina even more. Hello, Minato, Kushina. You look healthy for two dead people. The aforementioned duo flinched at the dull, bland tone in their son's voice. Minato gulped before looking at Naruto's blank, cold eyes. Then Naruto, do you know who we are? How would I not know the great Yondaime Hokage? The great slayer of the Kyuubi and the savior of Konoha. Then we have his wife, Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze. You are like gods to the people of Konoha. Why wouldn't I know who you are? Naruto spoke blankly. Naruto, I know what you meant, Yondaime. Naruto cuts him off before he continues. So, you know. That you are the parents that ruined my life and left me for dead in Konoha. Yes, I know exactly who you two are. The two flinched at his cold tone, but they were confused by what he said. Naruto, what do you mean we ruined your life? I mean I know having the Kyuubi and you may have been bad, but you had Sarutobi, Kakashi, Jiraiya, who we named as your godfather, and the good people of Konoha to look after you. Minato smiled wondering what he learns from everyone. Don't forget about Tsunade Tebain, Kushina exclaims. However, their cheerful mood drops when they felt an immense Kai aimed at them. They looked to see Naruto glaring venomously at them. The whites of his eyes glowing, giving him a very eerie look. Kurama and Hinata flinched knowing the bomb those two set off. Naruto continued to glare for a good while before he spoke in a cold whisper. Not that bad. Looked after. Good people of Konoha. His voice was growing much angrier and louder. You stupid, naive, idealistic, idiots. At this point, his voice was raised higher. He was now screaming at them. You have the nerve to say to my face while smiling no else. What fucking village were you living in? And to answer your question, no. I was not well looked after. The moment after you sealed Kurama within me, I had people screaming for my death. Jiraiya, Kakashi, and Tsunade as you well put it did nothing for me. The Sandaime was even worse. He gave into that console like a submissive bitch. I was forced to live in an orphanage till I was kicked out when I was 4. I lived on the streets for nearly 4 fucking years. I was put in an apartment building in the red light district of Konoha. Hell, the residents there treated me more human than the rest of the village. I have been beaten, tortured, stabbed, electrocuted, burned, drowned, and raped by the very people you saved. And you know what they said as they did all that to me? They said a demon like I has no right to live, that they are honoring the Yondaime by finishing his job. So you tell me, what in the fucking hell did you think you were doing when you gave me a death sentence in that village? By the end of his rant, Naruto was panting so heavily that he was wheezing. He had been keeping all his hatred bottled up for a long time, and hearing that garbage from their mouths finally set him off, and he just let it all go. Still, it felt good to release all his pent-up rage. Plus, he took a sadistic pleasure in breaking their naive perfect views of their beloved village. He was a very fucked up individual, that's for sure. Now if they didn't believe him, he'll just kill them and find his way out of here with Hinata's and Kurama's help. Though could he kill them, since they were spirits? Maybe his magic can test out that theory. Taking souls from the living is one thing, but he's never tried it against the dead. He is cut from his train of thought when he feels a hand on his shoulder and looks over it and sees Hinata looking at him in concern. He gives her a nod to confirm that he was fine. Yo-ing. A voice softly says. Naruto and Kurama with their heightened hearing picked it immediately. Naruto sighed in annoyance before looking at the two and sees both their heads down, their bodies shaking. Excuse me? You want to repeat what you just said, human? Naruto growled out to his human father. Hinata looks up. You're lying. There's no way that happened to you. Konoha is one of the best villages in the elemental nations. Konoha would not do those things to you. Minato yelled in denial. Kushina looked like someone whose world had been completely crushed and hoped everything she heard was a lie. That couldn't be true. The people of Konoha loved him and her wife, surely they would love their son as well. Surely they would see Naruto as their savior and protector and not the fox sealed within him. And even if they didn't, the Sandaime, Jiraiya and Kakashi would have watched over him. They promised that the boy would live to have a happy childhood and become a great ninja. The people they trusted and risked their lives for wouldn't turn their backs on them and their son so easily, right? Naruto palmed his face with both hands as he was trembling in rage. He slowly takes his hands off as his parents took several steps back in fear as Hinata and Kurama got very worried. Naruto's eyes were completely white and brightly shining with a pale glow. However, before anyone could react, Naruto appeared in front of them looking at the two with a malicious smirk. A smirk that promised pain and suffering. Without a second to react, Naruto slammed a swift uppercut into Minato's gut. The air left the Yondame's lungs as he felt his muscles and organs twist due to the sheer force of the punch. Naruto's smile widens as he heard the sounds of muscles and organs being twisted and squeezed to the brink of being ripped apart. It was music to the Dragon King's ears. And oh boy. Doing it to his human father, Naruto using the term very loosely, made it all the more enjoyable. Minato coughed out blood and spit as he flew back a few feet. He began coughing profusely as he held his stomach in pain. However, Minato had little time to contemplate his injuries as Naruto appeared right in front of him. Kushina lunged forward to try and stop Naruto, but the blonde king merely disappeared in a blur before hoisting her into the air through a vicious vice grip to the throat. Kushina. Minato croaked. Naruto smirked as he viciously slammed her into the ground as Kushina grunted in pain. Minato tried to get up, but one swift kick from his son sent him back to the ground. Minato grunted in pain as he and Kushina looked up to see their son going through several hand gestures that resembled hand signs. Suddenly a seal appeared in each of their abdomens. Minato and Kushina began panicking as they couldn't feel their chakra anymore. Hell, they couldn't move a muscle. What was happening? What have you done to us? Minato coughed out. Naruto smirked. I just added a seal that seals away your chakra and makes you immobile. Making sure you can't run away. Naruto explained as he lifted Minato by the collar of his shirt. Minato was panicking and was about to say something, but a harsh punch in the gut made him choke on his words. No more talking. Now take your beatings like a man. Naruto sneered as he reared his arm back and wham, 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 wham. Naruto punched Minato again and again. He could hear his ribs shattering and his organs taking damage. His face was getting more bloody and broken. He coughed blobs of blood as he was continuously pummeled. Kushina watched in horror as her son beat her husband viciously. Naruto finally paused as he saw the bloody mess that the Yondaime was in. He decided it was time to finish this up. He threw the beaten Yondaime to the side as he landed next to his wife. Kushina started asking if he was right, but all Minato could do was groan. Anything Kushina was going to say was cut off as Naruto appeared right in front of them. He raised his arm as his magical energy poured into his palm as it formed into a very familiar sphere. The Rasengan. However, Naruto continued to pour his mana into the sphere as it grew until it was the size of a 10-foot-sized beach ball. Naruto, please. Kushina pleaded, but Naruto just gave her a dull look. Farewell, Kushina Uzumaki. Minato Namikaze. Go back to the afterlife knowing that you failed your son. Naruto was about to launch the Rasengan, but a hand suddenly stopped him. Naruto growled in annoyance as he turned to see who stopped him. His glare vanished as he blankly looked back at the lavender eyes of Hinata. Why? Was all he asked. Hinata frowned sadly as she continued to look at her crush lover husband. She gave a quick glance to Kushina and Minato, and her frown deepens as she saw the petrified looks on their faces. She quickly turned back to Naruto's blank stare. That's enough. Don't do this. Hinata finally said. Naruto's stare became fierce, but before he could say anything, Hinata continued. Naruto, she began slowly. I understand you are angry. I get it. Kurama gets it. You've bottled up all your anger and hatred for Konoha and your parents for so long, and I can tell you have been through much in this world. And after hearing what your parents said, you finally just snapped and vented it out on them. I understand, Naruto. But I can't allow you to continue. I will not allow you to get consumed by your anger and hatred and make a mistake that you will regret. Naruto was about to speak, but Hinata cut him off. No, I am not done, so you will listen to me, Naruto. Right now we have bigger things to worry about. Such as figuring out who brought us here. So I need you to calm yourself down and not let your anger consume you. This is not you. You are not the masked Uchiha and you are nothing like Sasuke. So prove that right now that you are not an Uchiha and just cooperate with them until this matter is settled. You don't have to like or forgive them. I can't ask you to do that nor can I force you to. But you promised that we would work together to find out who brought us here. So can you settle down or are we going to be stuck like this until you do? Because I will if I have to. Naruto was torn between growling in anger or laughing in amusement. Hinata had truly changed since the last time he saw her, which made her all the more desirable to take at the moment. The only time she ever remotely talked like she did now was during their time together. Well, brief, it was one of the best times of his life. He wanted to argue, but deep down he knew she was right. Despite hating his parents, killing them will get him nowhere. They needed to work together to figure out how they got here. He sighed before dispelling the Rasengan as his eyes went back to normal. The others sighed in relief, though Minato and Kushina were more noticeable. The two flinched as they saw Naruto staring at them. The three stayed in a deafening silence until Naruto raised his arm, which caused the two flinch, until he flicked his wrists as the seals on their bodies disappeared. Naruto flicked his arm once more as Minato's body glowed as all the injuries he sustained disappeared. The two stood up as they looked up at Naruto in confusion. Don't get the wrong idea. I did it because if we want to find out who brought us here, we need to be in tip-top shape, and having you beaten and bloody, while amusing for me, would be nothing but a hindrance. The two flinched but nodded. Naruto turned to Hinata who gave him a proud smile. Now Naruto, who do you know that would be capable of summoning the five of us here? She asked. Perhaps we can answer that question, young lady. A voice stated. The occupants turned their heads to the source of the voice and were shocked at who the origin of the voice was. Two figures approached them. Both of these beings were equal in size to Kurama and were dragons like Naruto was when he first appeared in the White Void. The first one had an aquamarine scales covering the top half of his body, while his lower body was covered in gray scales. His wings were bat-like just like the typical depiction of a dragon and colored aqua like his skin. His eyes were a very light blue that matched the sky on a bright summer day. He had a white flowing bear tied with a golden band going down his chin and had 4 horns on his head, 2 horns on the top of his head and 2 on his side that was golden at the tips and extended outwards and inwards respectively. A white unibrow covered his forehead and went up to his hair. He had 2 golden plates on his shoulders that connected at the front of his body with a chain. At the end of the chain was a large blue jewel. Past the plates was a long dark blue cloak that reached the end of his tail that had 2 golden bands like his beard. He also had 2 brown packs on both of his sides that were filled with books and scrolls. That dragon surprised Naruto, but it was the second that surprised him the most and made him feel something he has not felt in a long time. Fear. The second occupant was a completely black dragon, similar to Naruto's form, but his underbelly was a much darker shade of gray. He had 4 fingers for his claws and talons. His wings were also bat-like in design and had black transparent skin on them. He had 2 horns on his head and 4 on his chin. He had amber eyes with black horizontal slits. He also had bone-like horns that started on his head and then went down his spine to the end of his tail that was in the shape of an axe. The most noticeable attire on this dragon was the silver necklace around his neck that seemed to have an indentation in the center for some kind of jewel. Naruto was shaking at who was in front of him. Hinata looked at him in concern at how afraid he seems right now. She taps him on the cheek with her hand which snaps him out of his trance for him to look at her in fear, which worries her even more. Naruto-kun, what's wrong? You look so shocked and scared. Please, tell me. Hinata pleaded. Naruto remained quiet, but a cough from the dragons got their attention. I believe we may answer why young Naruto is feeling so anxious in front of us. The blue one said with a smile. Hinata looked at them in worry, while Kurama looked ready to fight if necessary. The blue one's smile increased when the girl asked who they are. You see, young Hinata, I am known as the Chronicler, one of the elder dragons. I am the watcher for all dragon kind. I have recorded the history of the dragon since its infancy to its present state. My fellow draconian is Thorn. The dragon of energy, the 6th dragon king and Naruto's, or should I say Acnologia's predecessor and surrogate father. The same father he killed with his own hands. The silence that encompasses the room was deafening. Kurama and Hinata were looking between the dragons and Naruto in shock. Naruto killed his surrogate father. Why though? What would cause him to do such an act against a being who most likely raised him like a son? Power. Revenge. None of those matched with Naruto's beliefs or ideologies. But they had no idea how long it has been for Naruto after his execution. So it's possible that he changed to someone much more bitter and vengeful than his old self. However, any doubts were removed when they saw how the aforementioned blonde was taking the appearance of the 2 dragons. In layman's terms, Naruto was shaking like a frightened rabbit. They could tell Naruto was terrified of speaking with the former Dragon King, let alone being in the same room as him. Speaking of Naruto, said blonde could not look at Thorin in the eye. He had disgraced the great legacy Thorin had left him with his actions during the Dragon Civil War. He spat on his ideals and his last wishes. That was why at the moment he had his head lowered in shame, not being able to look at Thorin directly. As far as he was concerned, he should not be king. And yet, none of the dragons came after him to take the crown. Was it because he was the strongest or because the crystal still saw him worthy? But why though? He had done nothing to earn that title or its benefits. All he did was bring the dragon race to near extinction. Hell, all he has been doing for the last 400 years is destroy countless empires and civilizations. Even if many were ruled by tyrannical men or were followers of Zeref, he didn't just kill the king, he killed everything. Every man, woman, and child was eradicated by him. It was literal genocide. He brought nothing but death, destruction, and annihilation to anything and anyone that came in his line of sight. All in the name of filling the empty void that had not closed in those 400 years. The blonde was cut from his musings when a black claw touched his chin and lifted his head. He locked his eyes with Thorin. While he expected rage or disappointment, he did not expect a gentle expression on Thorin's face. He merely smiled at Naruto's bewildered look. "It has been a long time, my son. You have grown to become a magnificent dragon, Naruto." Naruto's eyes widened and just gawked as he pushed the claw away and looked at Thorin in anguish and confusion. "How can you say that to me? How can you say all that after everything I have done? I killed you. I killed countless of my brethren in cold blood. Hell, part of me enjoyed it while I saw their lives being taken away as their eyes lost their light and they fell into the cold earth. For dragon's sake, I drank and bathed in their blood and ate some of their bodies and organs. How can you still look at me with such love and affection? I don't deserve to be loved. Why don't you scorn me? Why don't you hate me? Answer me." By the end of his rant, Naruto was on his hands and knees opening, weeping and shaking. He couldn't understand why his father still loved him after everything he has done to him, to their people, to his legacy. Hinata could not stand anymore and watch her beloved look so broken. The last time she saw him like this was before his execution. She rushed to his side and did her best to comfort him despite his protest. She did not care about the things that he had done. It's been years since she saw him and people change as tragedy happens to them. She did not care if he was the reincarnation of evil itself. She promised she would love him for all eternity, even if it meant falling into the depths of hell to be with him. She would jump off the edge without a second thought. Meanwhile, Kurama looked at the scene with a sad expression on his maw. He knew what it was like to have failed a father and to have killed thousands of people for years. It was like him and Naruto were reflections of one another. It actually made him feel some pity to know that someone he came to care about like a son ended up as he did in his life. He looks to Kushina and Minato to see them looking at the distressed Naruto in sorrow. They must have realized that Naruto's cold and sadistic persona was a facade to hide away from the shame, guilt, pain, and, most importantly, the anger that lay deep within. Kurama just had to chuckle cynically. No matter how much time passes, some things would never change. In Naruto's case, wearing a mask to hide his true feelings. Back with Naruto, he continued to sob while Hinata held him as tightly as she could and whispering comforting words from her. He did not deserve such a gesture from such a kind woman. She was light personified while he was darkness in its worst form. Yet he held her as tightly as he could as if she was his lifeline. Thorin looked down at his son in sadness. He knew that Naruto had suffered far worse than most dragons have suffered in all of their lifetimes combined. He knew that he had bottled all his anguish, but he needed to get back to business to help with the mission ahead. "Naruto, look at me," he said, and Naruto obeyed. What happened 400 years ago was a tragedy. A great tragedy indeed. However, it was unavoidable with how the war was going for both sides. Someone would have ended just like you, and the same result would have occurred, regardless of what you or anyone else did. None of the dragons blame you for what happened. Not me. Not the chronicler, nor the elementals or the other dragons. Didn't you ever wonder why none of them nor allies did anything to stop you? It's because they felt some responsibility for what happened to you and decided to leave you alone in your grief and ordered the remaining dragons to go into hiding. Now that you have calmed down to a reasonable level, the chronicler and his father decided to set this little meeting up and to give you something. What do they want to offer Naruto-kun? Hinata asked for him. Thorin smiled at the girl before caressing her cheek with one of his claws. So you are the famous Hinata. Naruto would always speak about you for a very long time. I must say you as beautiful as he described. He would always talk about you most of the time, calling you his lavender queen or moon goddess. He especially talked all the time when your daughter asked him about you. I am glad I had a chance to meet my son's first mate. Hinata was literally steaming red from what Thorin told her. Beautiful. Moon goddess. Lavender queen. How can Naruto swoon her over with such simple words? They only met after a few years and yet he can sweep off her feet so easily. She looked at Naruto and saw his eyes. She saw that he meant every word and that they were still true to him even now. She wanted to take him right then and there, but something Thorin said got her attention and caused her to look at the dragon in confusion. Thorin Otu-sama, what do you mean daughter? Naruto and I have no children. Thorin smiled at his nickname as did chronicler, Naruto, and Kurama. Did you forget the time between Naruto and yourself before he was executed? Hinata blushed a deep red again and nodded, remembering her time with her beloved. Why yes. Now about this offer? She asked. Before that, I think there are some people that need to be informed about some events. Right, Naruto. The chronicler spoke this time. Naruto nodded and got up before walking over to Kurama and his parents again. Naruto looked at them seriously while the two were nervous but remained calm. What I am about to show you is my life up till my execution. I have no reason to lie to either you, so know this is the absolute truth. I swear a blood oath to the dragons I am showing you the truth. After he finished that, lightning boomed within the void, confusing everyone except the dragons and Naruto on what it meant. The chronicler decided to explain. The blood oath to the dragons is a sacred vow that a being makes that they swear to uphold and accomplish the task they promise to keep. Failure to do so would mean eternal pain and suffering for the person that broke that solemn oath. Everyone looked at Naruto in shock. He would really take it that far to prove he was telling the truth. Then again, it was just like him to do something so crazy. Naruto then closed his eyes. Byakugan. When he opened his eyes, they glowed a pale white. Hinata looked at him confused as to why he called it that. I named it Byakugan because of how my eyes looked and some of their abilities match yours. Plus it was my way to honor you. It made me feel like I had a piece of you with me at all times. He smiled when Hinata looked like she was the happiest woman on the planet and gave him a big fat wet French kiss. The kiss lasted for a few minutes and involved a lot of tongue movement until Naruto was given some time to breathe. He looked to see that Hinata's face was flushed and her eyes had a lot of lust in them. Lust for him and him only. He knew he probably had the same look on him. The dragons and Fox just laughed at the display. Minato and Kushina were blushing at the display of affection since that should be reserved in the bedroom. Naruto pulled his attention back to his parents. Memory projection. He shouted as a giant white screen appeared above his head. The screen flashed to life. He projected Konoha after Kurama's attack and being sealed inside Naruto. The scenery was from a horror movie. The fire was everywhere, burning buildings and corpses of the dead. Buildings crushed and destroyed and many areas were left barren. Bodies of the dead were scattered everywhere, sometimes only limbs were all that remained of a person. The scene changed to the council room when the reinstated Sandaime took charge after his successor's death and revealed Naruto's condition to the council. Immediately they screamed for his death on the civilian side, while the shinobi wanted him on a leash or in a jail cell to protect everyone. Danzo wanted him as a weapon to be used against their enemies. The Sandaime demanded silence and explained Naruto will live in the orphanage and later be put in a home in the red light district with no one helping him, including the Hokage. Almost everyone agreed and the meeting ended. The scene changed to Naruto having a horrible time in the orphanage. Being given worn-out clothes and barely any blankets to keep himself warm. The other kids and caretakers abused and bullied the child for the years he remained in the orphanage. When he was 4, he was thrown out onto the streets, in a blizzard no less. He would have died from hypothermia and frostbite if the fox had not used his chakra to keep Naruto warm and protected from the elements. Naruto lived in cardboard boxes for shelter and found his food from the various dumpsters he scavenged around. After one beating on his birthday, he was given his rundown apartment. It was during his time he meets the good people of Ichiraku Ramen that always gave him a bowl of food. It soon became his favorite place to eat and hang out. But that did not deter the numerous attempts at his life. He was beaten and abused in the vilest ways a human could do to a child. Then when he was 8, he was kidnapped by several villagers that toured and raped him for several months. By the time he was rescued by the Hokage and some of his trusted Anbu, the deed was done. The same Anbu that arrived late to save from his beatings. After his rescue, Naruto was an empty husk. He cared nothing for anyone or anything. He was tired of the pain, of all the suffering. So he took a knife in his home and pierced his heart with it. He fell to the floor as he was drowning in a pool of his own blood. But the fox saved him from death and he was taken to the hospital to speed up the healing. After release, Naruto would try to end his life for months, but each time he failed miserably. Naruto finally just gave up on trying to end his life, then he came up with the idea of becoming Hokage and gaining everyone's love and appreciation. Since everyone looks up to the Hokage with love, awe, respect, and look up to him for guidance, he decided to do the same. He entered the academy to become a ninja, but he quickly saw that his teachers did everything possible to sabotage his learning. Naruto decided to play pranks to get back at them and to vent out his hate to the village. Plus it was a good lesson in stealth and he managed to outrun the Chunin, Jonin, and even Anbu chasing him for hours. He literally painted the village's monument in broad daylight in a neon orange jumpsuit and no one caught him until he was done. The day he failed for the 3rd time he was tricked into stealing the Scroll of Ceilings, which was a relic of the village. He mastered a forbidden technique from it in just a few hours. The technique was called the Shadow Clone Jutsu, which creates solid copies of the user. These copies were self-conscious and able to think for themselves, but usually acted identical to the original. The main thing was that anything they learn or experience goes to the original user after they are dispelled in a cloud of smoke. He used it to save the one teacher that cared about him and beat the other teacher that tricked him to stealing the scroll. He was put in a team with his crush Sakura Haruno and his emo rival Sasuke Uchiha. His teacher was a masked cyclops by the name of Kakashi Haddock. He was a lazy bum that always arrived 3 hours late and gave the worst exercises you could have ever heard. He gave lousy exercises and always focused on Sasuke. Sakura never cared and always fawned over Sasuke. She would always berate and hit Naruto whenever he tried to cheer her up or ask her out. Then came his first mission outside the village that went from a simple C rank to an A rank. It was during this mission he learned what his ninja way will be and how he will his life in the shinobi world. Then came the chance to advance in ninja rank, the Chunin exams. It was broken into 3 parts. A written part which went off with little trouble. The second part was a survival exam in an area called the Forest of Death. That is where things went to shit. First, the 3 got separated from each other by a powerful wind attack. Then Naruto gets eaten by a giant snake. Then after he gets out he finds his teammates being attacked by the guy that sent that snake. This man was Orochimaru. Naruto used some of Kurama's chakra to fight him, but he was knocked eventually by having his connection cut off by Orochimaru. After the snake marks Sasuke with a curse mark, he leaves them to their own devices. His team barely makes it to the 3rd stage. The preliminary stage was set to narrow down the numbers. Naruto is able to win as did Sasuke. Sakura ends her fight in a draw. Naruto then makes it his personal mission to beat Neji for nearly killing Hinata in their match. Naruto and the others had 1 month to train before the 3rd round. Naruto meets Jiraiya for the first time. Jiraiya was one of Orochimaru's teammates and both studied under the Sandaime. He teaches Naruto how to summon toads and use Kurama's chakra consciously. This was when he meets Kurama for the first time. After that Naruto relaxes until the fateful day of the exams. Naruto nearly loses to Neji, but Kurama's chakra helped him pull out a win. Then during the last round, Orochimaru initiates an invasion he had been planning along with another village, Suna. Naruto ends up fighting Gaara who had Kurama's youngest brother, Shukaku, inside him but driven insane by the faulty seal that caused Gaara to have insomnia. Naruto was able to change Gaara's view on life, but many died in the aftermath of the invasion, including the Sandaime. Naruto and Jiraiya go to find the Sandaime's last student, Tsunade Senju. She is the greatest healer in all of the elemental nations and the strongest female ninja. She was in her 50s like her teammates but looked to be in her 20s because of a special technique. Naruto finds out she is a drunken mess because of the loss of her loved ones during the last war and compulsive gambler with horrible luck. He is able to get her out of her drunken mess and convince her to return to the village, but not before there was a battle royale between Tsunade and Jiraiya against Orochimaru and his assistant Kabuto. The Budo was in his late teens with silver hair tied in his ponytail. He wore round glasses and purple pants with a matching shirt and fingerless gloves with a white sash tied around his waist. The fight ended with Orochimaru and Kabuto running away. Though while Naruto did barely anything, he did learn his father's signature move, the Rasengan, during this time as a consolation. After they returned to Konoha and Tsunade became the Godame Hokage, Naruto went on several missions, including saving an actress that turned out to be an actual princess of Spring Snow Country and helping a powerful lord in the land of tea. However, everything went downhill when Sasuke tried to leave for Orochimaru to get more power so that he could kill his brother. Naruto and a team of his friends were chosen to go after him. In the end, it was a fight between Naruto and Sasuke at the Valley of the End. Naruto managed to take the win thanks to Kurama's chakra. He dragged Sasuke back hoping for some recognition at long last. Nope. Not even fucking close. Immediately the council said he had used excessive force to bring back the Uchiha and needed to be put down. They threw him in jail and told him that his execution would be held in a week. No one came to see him or even allowed to see him. Not his friends. Not his teachers. No Iruka. No Jiraiya. No Tsunade. No one. The last time he saw them was when he was dragged into the prison. All of his friends calling him a traitor and a monster. Apparently the council blew the lid on his secret and now everyone knew he was the Kyuubi Jinchuriki and hated him for it. His closest people, Iruka, Tsunade and Jiraiya did nothing for him and watched in silence as he was taken away. It was in his time of solitude he realized how foolish he had been in trying to change the village. It was during this time that Hinata visited him. She bawled her eyes out as she confessed her love for him. She managed to find a way into the prison and had one night of beautiful love-filled passion with him. Minato, Kushina and Hinata blush at this and Kurama helps Naruto have one thing to remember her by. He also gives Naruto his power since he has been the only one worthy of his power. He also reveals Naruto's heritage to him, which was the start of his hatred for his parents and his desire to destroy Konoha. On the day of his execution, the entire village came out to see it except Hinata and the Ichirakus. Naruto was killed by being set on fire. But he did not scream, he laughed. A bone-chilling laugh that filled the air and scared the shit out of everyone. He then told them his heritage and why Kurama attacked the village before finally dying and leaving his old world for a new one. The screen finally disappeared as Naruto's eyes returned to normal. He was panting somewhat from the overuse of his eyes since it had been a long since he went that long with a memory projection. He realized that he was seriously out of shape and needed to fix that. He looks up to see Hinata worried but waves it off. He turns to his parents and sees that they were broken in a sense. Both were crying their eyes, slamming their fists to the ground, cursing everyone, and wishing that the two just let Kurama destroy the village if this was what awaited their son. They cursed the Uchiha that released Kurama and turned him on the village. They curse Sasuke for being the final nail to end Naruto's life. They cursed Tsunade, Jiraiya, Kakashi, and the Sandaime for not helping their son enough for looking after him. They cursed the entire village to the pits of hells, and most of all, they cursed themselves for damning their son. They had foolishly believed that their son would be loved by everyone and would be seen as a hero by all. What fucking idiots they had been. Their stupid, naive idealism cost their son not only a childhood, but a life in general. The question that continued to plague their minds was why? Why did the people they trusted with their lives did not do the same for their own flesh and blood? Did they just pretend to care about them and showed their true colors to Naruto? Was this really what they gave their lives for? They saved their village for their son to be beaten and killed. To be turned into a monster worse than the Kyuubi. They were cut from their musings when Naruto began to speak. I have shown you the truth of my upbringing and now I have something to say something. Something that has been long overdue. You two have caused me a great deal of misery in my existence. Whether it was indirectly or involuntarily, the fact remains is you made my childhood a living hell. But I should thank you since I was given a father in the form of Kurama and Thorin, Minato flinches, and a mother in Thorin's queen, Saphira, Kushina flinches. After everything that's happened to me, I can honestly say without remorse that I hate both of you. I hate you so much that it burns my very being. Even though you now feel remorse for your mistakes, it does not change anything for me. And that's why I can never accept you as my parents. Not now. Maybe not ever. The aforementioned duo felt their entire world shatter. Their own son doesn't see the two as his parents. Hell, he sees two dragons and the Kyuubi of all beings as his parents more than the two of them. They couldn't blame him though. They failed miserably as parents. All they gave him was a burden he was too young to understand or bear and left with people that turned their backs on him, wanted nothing to do with him, or wanted him dead. They hung their heads low as new waves of tears came to their eyes. We fucked up so bad. Was their collective thought as they wept once more for the new wound in their hearts. The two felt a pair of arms wrap around them. They looked up to see Hinata's sympathetic gaze. The two buried their heads on her shoulders as they continued to sob and weep. Hinata held onto the two tightly as she whispered comforting words to them. She paused as she looked towards Naruto. She gave him a sad look while Naruto retained a blank stare. She knew he was not bothered by her actions and she knew she could not say anything to change his mind. Even during their time together, Hinata could not help Naruto to let go of his anger towards his parents. And it seems his time on Earthland had not been kind all of the time to him and all it seemed to do was bury all his hatred down before it came all out today. She knew she had no right to tell Naruto who to consider as his parents, she just hopes that perhaps with time, Naruto will learn to forgive his parents after getting all that anger, rage, and grief out. Meanwhile, the other occupants watched the scene with sadness and pity in their eyes. Kurama and Thorin knew it would be a long time before Naruto ever lets go of his hatred for them if he ever does. The two just hope it's not at the end of his life again, so he doesn't die with regrets again in his heart. Thorin was next to speak after a period of silence. Naruto turned to his mentor father. I believe you and the other two should listen to what Hinata had to say to you about the elemental nations after your abrupt end. Naruto turned to the girl in question, along with anyone else in the room, as she got up after Minato and Kushina had calmed down enough to listen as well. She sighed before she began recounting her tale. Well, after your execution, things got really bad for Konoha. When word got out that the village abused and executed the only son of the Yondaime, a lot of people were not happy. The village was split in two because of it. Those that felt guilty, a bit late for that in Naruto's mind, and those who did not care. The Kazekage, Gaara, the Spring Daimyo, Koyuki, the Waterfall Leader, Shibuki, the Land of Tea Leader, Jiracho, the entirety of Wave, cut all ties with Konoha. They were all disgusted with not only your upbringing, but also that you were executed for doing your job. The Fire Daimyo had to march down to the village after nearly drowning in angry letters from all the different countries that dissolved their treaty with us. He really let all of them have it as he ranted on them for their stupidity. The civilian council was disbanded and all of its members were executed and had all of their assets seized. The clan heads had to pay a hefty fine that depleted half of their total income. The shinobi elders were sent to a maximum prison. Danzo tried to fight back thinking this was his opportunity to take over, but Jiraiya and Tsunade killed him after a long battle. His rude Anbu then went on the offensive against the village. It became a bloody massacre, no one knew who was friend or foe. Afterward, the Fire Daimyo wanted to know why Danzo wasn't watched more carefully if he was such a suspicious character, but all Tsunade could do was give excuses, which pissed him off even more. He basically removed nearly all power from the Hokage and basically made her a figurehead, and he was basically calling all the shots now. All of our former friends were in denial, and many of them blamed you for all the damage that was done to the village. The only ones who looked remorseful were Shikamaru, Choji, Lee, Tenten, and Shino. Again, a bit for that, thought Naruto. Sasuke was still in a medically induced coma to keep an eye on him. I decided to fuck him over for what he did to you. I added some ingredients to his medicine he was being injected with that slowly killed his ability to produce sperm. Normally the drugs he was being given were to keep him down, so no one knew what was happening to him until it was too late. By the time he was awake, his testicles were like a barren desert. Naruto stared at Hinata in shock. You mean you? She nodded with a smirk. Yup, I made that puny Uchiha the last one in every sense of that word. Well, the last one besides Itachi and that masked bastard claiming to be Madara. Hell, I even injected him with some special enzymes that permanently relaxed the muscles in his genitals so he could no longer get an erection. No children and no sex for that bastard ever again. Though I was saving any poor girl or guy stuck with him from a life of disappointment. He really earned the title runt of the Uchiha. Naruto could not help but roar in laughter, everyone else joined soon after. Kurama was rolling on the floor and could feel his sides hurt from all the laughing. Even Kushina and Minato could not help but chuckle at the girls' antics. Take that Uchiha team. They collectively thought. Hinata coughed out a giggle before she continued. I decided to go to Shizune to become her apprentice in the medical arts. She said I should go to Tsunade, but I told her I wanted nothing to do with that woman that could not do anything to save you. Plus she was taking Sakura and Ino as her students, and I wanted nothing to do with those two either. She finally agreed and began teaching me about poisons, which Anko helped a bit in, and medical ninjutsu. Tsunade she wasn't the same after your death. I think it just finally broke any fight she had left in her. I think she only took Sakura and Ino in as apprentices was so she didn't have to constantly remember she failed you. Thanks to my Byakugan and near-perfect chakra control, I excelled greatly in the medical arts. Then came my training in elemental manipulation. When Shizune tested my affinity, she was surprised I had a double affinity for water and wind. This finally explained why I was no good for Juken in its current state. The Juken was made for those with an earth affinity. It demanded someone sturdy and strong like a stone. But my nature demanded speed, flexibility, and adaptability. I decided to create my own style of Juken that complemented my two affinities to create a whole new way of using the Byakugan in combat. One day I was called by the Hyuga elders to the clan dojo. Apparently, they wanted to test Hanabi's skill against me once again. I decided to humor them for a bit and agreed to it. Hanabi tried to weaken my resolve by talking about how pathetic you were and she could have made a better wife for such a fool. That made me snap and forget about any restraint I was planning to show. I rushed right in and knocked off her feet in seconds and pumped her to the ground until she was a bleeding mess. The whole clan was shocked, some of the elders tried to intervene, but I knocked them to the ground with some powerful but deadly strikes to their groins. Hiashi was terrified by what I just did. He would have ordered me to stand down, but my glare stopped all that. I told him I was done with this bullshit from him and the rest of this disgusting clan. I told them that the shy Hinata was dead and gone forever. They wanted me to be a cold-blooded Hyuga and they were gonna get it. Niji made a comment about me still being weak like the demon, and I countered by activating the seal on his forehead. The bastard screamed for a few minutes before I got bored and stopped. I told him that next time I won't stop until he was dead on the floor and said the same thing for the rest if they ever insulted you in front of me again. After that, they never got in my way again. The entire house was afraid of me. After a whole year, Shizune wanted me to sign the slug contract, but I told her I had another summoning contract in mind. With that, we traveled to the remains of Yuzushiogakure. Like Kurama said, I was able to enter thanks to your blood in my system from our marriage and found the contract to the Phoenix. We kept it a secret from everyone, and I worked on learning the super strength technique that Tsunade developed and learning elemental mastery and senjutsu from my summons. I even took some kinjutsu lessons from a friend that Anko recommended. This went on for another 7 or so years. By the time I was in my 20s, I became the most powerful member of my age group. I had mastered my Sage mode in 3 years and I was stronger than both Jiraiya and Tsunade combined. Over the years, Shizune and Tsunade started to drift apart. Shizune tried being there as always, but Tsunade just closed her and everyone else off. Hell, even with Sakura and Ino, she kept the relationship professional and never tried to get close to the two of them. After they were done training, she only spoke to them when it was assigning them missions or handing out tasks in the hospital. Tsunade had become a shell of her former self. She was just like how she was when you found her, only worse. This time no one could get near unless it involved the village being endangered or something happening at the hospital. Jiraiya and Shizune tried many times, but nothing worked. The Tsunade Senju they knew was gone and she was not coming back. Then during the last battle in the second invasion by Odo with Iwa and Kumo helping this time, I fought Sasuke after he left for Orochimaru again a few years earlier. He proclaimed the same bullshit from before. Talking about killing off all Konoha and then going after his brother before he would revive his clan. He said he was gonna make sure I was gonna be one of his wives as a way to stick to you in the afterlife. I beat the little bastard to the ground without too much trouble since he underestimated me far too much. His curse mark form proved to be troublesome, but I handled it easily with my Sage Mode and Elemental Juken. I ended up beating the little bastard to the ground before I smashed his face into a million pieces with my enhanced strength. Jiraiya, Tsunade, Kakashi, and Guy fought Orochimaru, the Sandaime Tsuchikage, and the Yondaime Reikage. I fought against their Jinchuriki later on in the invasion. I was being pushed to my limits even with my Sage Mode, but then I unlocked this purple chakra. The chakra of Himura Otsutsuki. It merged with my Sage Mode transformed my eyes. They evolved into the Tensogen. It gave me the edge I desperately needed. I used my new power to fight off their Biju forms and I managed to free the tailed beasts and send them back to the summoning realm, but before they left, I took a sample of their chakras for the final part of the plan we had concocted. Releasing the Biju from their vessels, which ended up killing the 4 Jinchuriki, had pissed off the cages of the enemy alliance. Without their Biju, they were forced to retreat, but they were not done yet. They hired the Akatsuki to help destroy the leaf and get back at me. Itachi especially wanted my head for killing Sasuke. The leaf knew it would not win easily and managed to convince Suna, Taka, Spring, and Kiri to help in the war. The daimyo even sent an army of his elite samurai. Then the third invasion occurred about 6 months later, which gave me some time to master my new powers. The battle between the two forces was bloody and destructive. I fought Itachi, Pain, and Konan at the same time. I managed to kill Konan and Itachi, but I was nearly drained from the battle. Pain saw this and would have killed me if Shizune had not jumped in and taken the blow for me. When I saw my master die in front of me I snapped. My chakra levels spiked to ungodly levels. I began absorbing chakra from all around me and I absorbed the chakra of all the Biju I had collected over the years. I achieved what Kurama and you had wanted. My hair transformed completely white with a pair of horns growing from the sides of my head, but most importantly, I grew a third eye on my forehead. The Rin Sharingan. Kurama was right, I was the reincarnation of Kagaya Otsutsuki, or to be more precise, I was the atavism of Kagaya Otsutsuki. I had the power of the literal mother of all chakra. Pain stood no chance against me and I defeated him after a long fight. I destroyed his eyes so one could ever use them again. I appeared over the enemy leaders and both sides were shocked at my new appearance. The enemy cages would not stand down and told Madara to make his move. Madara appeared in the same clothes as he did when he tried to take Kurama. That same vile orange mask pissed me off to no end. He used to the Edo Tensei to revive the previous Jinchuriki along with an army of shinobi from Legends. Some of these guys included the 7 swordsmen of the mist, bloodline wielders, my mother, Shizune, and the Uchiha clan. He tried to resurrect you but was confused when it did not work along with everyone else. That was when I knew you were alive somewhere and that gave me hope that you were happy somewhere away from all this. I used my new powers to wipe out his zombie army and barreled right after him. I managed to rip one of his arms and his Sharingan eye. I managed to damage his mask to reveal Madara or Tobi as he called himself was actually Obito Uchiha, one of your father's students. Minato and Kushina gasped in horror. He tried to use the Jito Meizo with the little chakra he had of the tailed beasts. He only had the 1, 3, and 7 tails. Everyone else was back home in their respective realm. Kurama was dead for good because of the seal of the Shinigami, and the death god made sure he would stay in the afterlife. The worthless statue did not work properly since Obito did not have the proper eyes to control it and that gave me the opportunity to destroy it. I created the biggest Gundama I could produce and fired it at the statue. It was obliterated instantly along with Obito and Zetsu and freeing the remaining Biju before I sent them home as well. Orochimaru was finally killed in the final battle against his teammates, but so were Jiraiya and Tsunade. The Reikage was barely alive with 1 arm and leg. The Tsuchikage was bisected courtesy of Kakashi and Guy entering the battlefield. Kisame was dead from a fight with the rookies. They all died fighting him with Lee using all 8 gates to decide the fight. The other members of the Akatsuki had died earlier on in the years by one of them. Sasori died to Sakura and Chiyo, Deidara died in a fight with Kakashi, trying to blow himself up with him and failed. Haiden and Kakuzu died in a fight against Team 7 and 10 in the aftermath of Asuma's death. In the end, the 3 enemy villages were split between the other 3 and they decided I should be Hokage. I accepted it since I promised to make your dream a reality and change the village the way it was supposed to be. I even changed my name to Hinata Uzumaki because you were the only man that would ever touch me in my life. I changed the Hokage monument to have you on it as well. I explained that you had inspired me to become who I became and that you were the true hero of the war. It was also to show people what hard work and dedication can lead someone to. That is about it. I reigned as Hokage for about 50 years before stepping down for someone else. After that, I traveled the world helping whoever I could before passing away peacefully when I turned 125. Naruto, Kushina, Minato, Kurama, and the others just stared in awe. Hinata had truly come a long way from who she used to be. Naruto could not have been more proud of his queen. She proved everyone wrong, and she rose to heights even he did not think were possible. He ran up to her giving a passionate kiss before grabbing her by the waist and spinning her around. "You're amazing, my queen. You passed even my wild expectations. You truly are magnificent, just like I said you would be." Hinata just laughed and gave him a kiss that he returned with equal passion. The dragons let the couple enjoy their moment before speaking again. "Naruto, as you can see, your mate grew to become a very powerful warrior. You were her symbol of strength and what helped her motivate herself to grow stronger than anyone else in her world could ever imagine." Naruto frowned before setting Hinata down before looking at Thorin. The person that motivated her was Naruto Uzumaki. "I have not been that person in a very long time. I am Acnologia. I am no longer be the person she ouch." Naruto was cut off from his rant when Hinata smacked him over the head. "What the hell, Hinata?" Hinata just looked annoyed. "I hit you because you were spilling some bullshit again. You tell me you are Acnologia. So what? I told you no matter what happens I would follow you into the depths of hell. If you become the bringer of evil itself I would stand by your side till the end of time. Do you hear me? I love you. Whether you are Acnologia or Naruto Uzumaki doesn't matter. I will always love you no matter till the end of time." Naruto just looked in awe on the girl in front of him. How can she still say all that? She doesn't even know everything he has done, yet he can tell none of it would change her opinion of him. She would always love him. All he could do just look at her in amazement before giving her a hug and whispering thank you again and again. Hinata just smiled and returned the hug. Thorin just smiled before continuing. "See, my son. Even your queen sees the good in you. You may say that you have no good in you, but you are wrong. And your actions in the last few years have proven this." Naruto looked at him questionably. "Let's begin with the first thing you did. Remember when you found Mavis Vermilion? She was orphaned on her island and you could have left her on that island, but you didn't. You helped raise her for the years you two were together until she walked off to her own adventures. It was thanks to you that Mavis became the great mage she was and brought about the creation of Fairy Tail. Then there was the battle with that human Gildert's Clive. You could have left him there to die, but you went out of your way to heal him and take him to the nearby town. Your actions with the Dragon Slayers is another showing of your compassion. Finally, do I have to explain your actions on Tenru Island?" Naruto just stared at Thorin in deep thought. Had he really been that merciful and caring without him realizing it? He saved Mavis because he sensed the potential within her. He saw the greatness that was begging to come out. It the same thing he saw within Hinata. But there was something else in her, something that he had not seen in a long time. He thought back to the fight with Gilderts. He let Gilderts live because no one had challenged him in such a long time. He awakened a spark within him, even if it was only an instant. He let him live because he wanted to see if the human could become stronger from this encounter. Tenru? He did not even need to remember. Those humans entertained him. Plain and simple. He saw the potential in those humans and tested them for that reason. Plus, his daughter was part of the guild, so he had to show some restraint. She was one of the Dragon Slayers he checked on from time to time. He felt an obligation to do this since he had a debt to repay to the dragons. The one he watched the most was his daughter for obvious reasons. She was his flesh and blood and unfortunately was the youngest of the children to become a Dragon Slayer. She was only 5 when Grandini left like the other dragons did. He even made small talk with her as she grew up in Kate's shelter. Part of him wondered why she became so attached to him after just a few visits. Did she know about him? Who he really was? It would explain why when he arrived on Tenru she was not scared like the rest. She was confused but also happy. She was happy that the first thing he does when they meet again is to attack her and the rest of her guild and not give any explanation. His daughter was really weird. Just like her mother he supposed. Hinata then looked at Thorin with curiosity in her eyes. "Thorin Otu-sama. Can you show me an image of my daughter? I would like to see how she has grown up." Thorin just smiled before turning to the chronicler that projected an image of her daughter. Hinata immediately squealed at how adorable her daughter looked. Even Kushina had hearts in her eyes. Hinata looked back to her beloved with stars in her eyes. "What's her name, Naruto-kun?" she asked. "Wendy. Wendy Marvell. Wendy. Like the wind. A fitting name. She's beautiful, Naruto. She is our daughter, of course, she would be beautiful." "Naruto." Naruto turned to the chronicler. "The time has come to explain why we have called you here." Naruto looked at the dragons seriously. The chronicler spoke this time. You know I am the son of the dragon god of time, Dialga, correct? Naruto nodded. Well, as you know, I can look into the future from time to time. Although they are just glimpses into them. Visions really, but they are very probable of happening. In my vision, I see our world 14 years in the future. In this future, the entire continent is a wasteland and humans run in fear every day and are nearly extinct. The reason? Dragons have run over the world and rule over it with an iron fist. Naruto looked in shock. None of the dragons he knew would ever do that. Sure, there was Kyurem, but even that sadistic ice freak had a code of honor. Who would dare do this? To answer your question, none of these dragons are our allies. These were man-eating dragons of the Dark Army from 400 years ago. Naruto was shocked. But how? I thought most of those beasts were killed at the climax of the war, how are they still alive? Because they came through a portal in time. Naruto froze at that. What? He whispered. 7 years from now an eclipse gate is opened. Someone will try to open a portal to 400 years in the past to kill Zeref before he became an immortal and by extension stop you. But it backfired. The portal was opened, but instead of going in, something came out. 10,000 dragons came out of the portal and invaded all of Fiori and then the rest of the continent. Naruto was just standing in shock at what he just heard. But he could not deny that what he said made sense. During the war, several dragons from both sides disappeared in the conflict through a portal in the sky. He always wondered what happened to those dragons. He also growled that someone was trying to use one of Zeref's magic against him. Nothing good can come out of time travel or messing with time in general. It always ends badly for someone. Naruto looked at the two dragons. So you want me to go stop this invasion and destroy this gate 7 years from now? Thorin shook his head. We want more than that, Naruto. It's time you get rid of this guilt and shame you have been carrying around for these past 4 centuries. Zeref will soon begin his destruction of the world and you are the only one that can stop him. Let's not forget about the remnants of the Dark Army and the other malevolent beings that still linger around the world. This is an opportunity for you. You said you still feel responsible for your crimes against the dragons, then help the humans. They will need your guidance. The dragon slayers need your guidance. You are the only one that can help them. Naruto shook his head, they would never agree to me helping them. The humans would sooner die or try to kill me before accepting my help. Then you make them believe in you. He turned to Hinata and she just smiled at him. Naruto-kun, you have always done the impossible. You have inspired those around you to go beyond what they are capable of. You did it for me, Wave, Gaara, Suna, Taka, Shibuki and many other places. Please don't let this chance slip away from you. If not for you, do it for our daughter. She deserves to live a life full of happiness with her loved ones. Please, Naruto-kun, do it for our beautiful baby girl. Please, we need you to be able to hope again. Naruto looked down and thought. Could he do it? Could he really let go of all his guilt and start living again? He imagined Wendy's happy face with all her nakama, falling in love with a boy, walking her down the alley, and watching her have children of her own. He remembered what Kurama said of never letting the hatred consume him. To always press forward and never give up. Then he remembered something else. Some very important words from the past. Insert song. Naruto O's decision. I said it and I never go back on my word. That's my nindo. My ninja way. A person is truly strong when they have something precious to protect. Never forget who you are, Naruto. I am proud to call you my vessel, Kit. You are the only I call worthy enough to have earned my respect and trust. That's why I am proud to call you successor and my son. Good luck in the next life, Kit. I am proud to call you my son, Naruto. You are the first to learn magic from a dragon. You are the first of your kind. The first dragon slayer. The dragon slayer to the Dragon King himself. Now go and make proud. Don't grieve, Naruto. I don't blame you for what you did. Remember, I will always love you. I will fight to the bitter end with you, Naruto. Because I love you. I love you just as much as Anna does. You two complete me. You have great potential within you. I can feel it. You are meant for great things and I will help your journey by setting you on the right path. I promise to be there for you, Mavis. I promise to save you, Naruto Nai. This is the age of magic. The age of miracles coming to life. So please don't give up on humanity yet. I know fairy tale will save you from the darkness. I swear it. It's the promise of a lifetime. Don't be a stranger out there. Everyone needs someone to talk about their troubles. Even a stubborn brute like yourself. So if you ever need a drink and someone to talk to, my doors will always be open. Make sure to visit on occasion. I would like to see you a few times before I finally kick the bucket. Please look after my daughter. The burden she has is a great one and I fear she won't be ready for is to come with that burden. Please help my darling Lucy. I promise to always look after you. I will make sure you live a full life and be able to have the life I was denied. I promise to always protect you, Wendy. I will always love you, my darling daughter. That's right, he mused. Naruto Uzumaki always kept his promises. He had broken so many before, but it was time to change that. He will not break a promise to Hinata, not to his first queen, especially when it was about their daughter. Naruto looked at Hinata before smiling and giving her a kiss. He turned to the dragons. I accept your terms. For too long I have been in a state of self-pity, of guilt and shame, but it's time to change. I will not allow those savage dragons to destroy the world. I will help those weak humans. I will destroy Zeref and all of his followers. I also will not let those savages shit on the legacy that you and the other dragons have left for me to live up to. I am Naruto D. Marvell. I am the first of the dragon slayers. I am Acnologia. I am the Dragon King. Everyone smiled with pride at Naruto's choice. Hinata gave a peck on the cheek. Naruto asked what will he need to do first. Well, first of all, we will return you to Mount Zonia. From there you have 7 years to retrain yourself, explained Thorin. Naruto looked at him blankly. Thorin rolled his eyes at his son. Don't give me that look, Naruto. You have not trained in over 400 years. You are rusty and need to get back in shape. Plus this gives you time to master all of your powers. And I do mean all of them, do you understand? Naruto growled, knowing exactly what he meant. But he needed to have all his powers in check to fight Zeref, and maybe that power will give him the edge he'll need against him. Naruto sighed before nodding. The chronicler smiled sadly. Unfortunately, it is time to say goodbye, Naruto. Naruto looked broken but knew this would come to an end eventually. Just like all good things. He began to see everyone begin to fade. Kurama looked at Naruto. Naruto, you have made me a proud fox. I would not expect anything else from my chosen vessel and son. Remember to never lose yourself and keep moving forward. Don't ever give up. Do me proud, kid. And with that, Kurama, the Kyuubi no Yoko, disappeared. Naruto turned to Minato and Kushina. The three just looked at each other in silence. Look, Naruto began to speak but was cut off when the two hugged him, which left him dumbfounded. You don't have to say anything, Minato said. Even if you hate us, we don't mind. We deserve it for failing you. But know this one truth, Naruto. Kushina said. We will always love you no matter what. The two said in unison before vanishing. He was left completely speechless and frustrated on what to say or feel. He turned to the last person, Hinata. He tried to speak, but he choked up any response, which made Hinata smile. She reaches into her pouch and took out some items. A worn-out blue headband with a leaf symbol engraved on a slab on metal on the cloth. A large black scroll with a red swirl. A necklace with a green jewel. The last item was a picture of her in her Hokage robes. He looked at her questioningly. She smiled softly. The scroll contains some surprises for you and Wendy. The necklace was yours to begin with, so I am returning it to its rightful owner. The picture is for you to have on hand, plus I am sure Wendy will like a picture of me. There is an album in the scroll along with my gift for you. My headband is for you to have something to remember me. You wore my blood against Neji, so I hope you would wear my headband the same way. Naruto smiled. Naruto, promise me you won't give in to despair again. Promise you will help those that need it. Please look after Wendy. Please be a loving parent to her. Every girl needs her daddy to be there for her. I can tell you found love again and that you have other children, Naruto-kun, and I'm glad you found happiness again with someone. I know you lost them, but you shouldn't let that stop you from loving someone. So promise me you won't stay alone. Promise me you will attempt to find love again. You need it, Naruto. I want you to be happy, so please do your best. Hinata, I promise to do my best. Hinata and Naruto share one final kiss. I love you, Naruto-kun. And never forget I will always watch over you. I love you too, Hinata. My lavender queen. My goddess of the moon. I will love you for all eternity. Hinata continued to smile until she faded away. Naruto let a few tears fall as he let it sink in that they were gone. Gone, but not forgotten. They will always be with me. He thought. He turned to the dragons. End of theme. Thank you, chronicler. The Aqua Dragon smiled. I will see you soon. Good luck, young Dragon King. He too soon faded. Naruto, remember, no matter what, I will always be with you along with the other Dragon Kings guiding you. Just look inside yourself. Never forget who you are. Farewell, my son, and make me proud. Thorin glowed a bright green light that expanded throughout the void. I promise, father. Everything went black for Naruto after that. When Naruto opened his eyes again, he was on Mount Zonia again as the sun is setting over the horizon. He sees in his hands the gifts Hinata left him with. He puts on the necklace and seals away the scroll and photo within a pocket dimension he wields. He looks at the headband and smiles. I promise I won't ever forget. He rips off the metal slab and sends it into his pocket dimension as he ties the blue cloth around his right arm as he looks towards the crimson-orange horizon. The eyes that were filled with rage, emptiness, grief and sorrow now had a fire ignited within them. A fire he did not think was there anymore. Acnologia was Naruto de Marvel once again. And this time nothing was going to stop him. Catching up with the fairies. 7 years. That's how long it has been for the members of Fairy Tail and the rest of the world after Acnologia attacked Tenru Island. After the attack, Acnologia had disappeared and has not been seen since. The core members of Fairy Tail that were on the island survived the attack, but there was a price. You see, the reason they survived Acnologia's attack was because their feelings for one another had activated one of Fairy Tail's great spells, Fairy Sphere. This sphere protected the group from the Dragon King's assault. The power of the sphere depends on the bonds of the members. The stronger the bond, the stronger the shield is made. However, the side effect of the shield is that it put everyone on the island into a comatose state. They remained like that for 7 years and none of them aged at all during that time. It came as a big shock to everyone, but not as much as a shock when they found out who helped activate the spell. It was Mavis Vermilion, the first master of Fairy Tail. She appeared like a petite girl in her teens. She had a petite body with long pale blonde hair that reached her ankles with a single band pointing upwards on top of her head. She had wing-like adornments on the sides of her head. She had a pale pink dress with a red bow tied around the collar. Around her chest were 3 blue diamond patterns with 2 blue triangles above them. Each series of these is outlined in hot pink. She had deep emerald eyes with no pupils. She also walked everywhere barefoot. Everyone was shocked to see the spirit of the first master and founder of their guild. Apparently she lives on the island, and since only members of the guild could see her, she decided to stay on the island for the time and reminisce on her life. However, after the fiasco with Acnologia, she decided maybe she should return to civilization and see how her guild has grown. The Tenru group and the members that came to find them were left dumbfounded, but they nodded nonetheless. After all, they could not reject a request from the founder of their guild. When they returned to the mainland, they were shocked at all the changes that happened without them. Biska and Alzak had finally gotten together. They even got married and had a daughter, Asuka. It came as big surprise since everyone knew they had the hots for one another, but too shy to openly admit it to one another. Urza seemed the most shocked by this, much to the confusion of the couple. The next shocking news that came to them was their ranking in Fiori. They had dropped from being number 1 to becoming the weakest guild in the country. Mikao Convolt was forced to become Fairy Tail's 4th master. They had lost numerous job requests and their guild hall. But with everyone from Tenru Island back, they had hope again. Hope that they could rise up and become number 1 in Fiori again. After a few weeks of celebrating and catching up, the entire guild came to a realization. They were completely broke and they needed cash fast. Makarov Dreyer, the 3rd master of Fairy Tail, decided that for the guild to rise again, they needed a new leader. Makarov was in his late 80s. He had led Fairy Tail for over 40 years and decided it was time for him to step down. He decided to nominate Gildertz Clive, the guild's ace, as the 5th master of Fairy Tail. Gildert's first action as master was to reinstate Laxus Dreyer, Makarov's grandson, as a member of the guild. Laxus was in his early 20s and had a very muscular build. He had short spiky blonde hair. His eyes were a deep green and he had a lightning bolt scar over his right eye. He wore a black vest with grey fur around the collar of the vest and at the sleeves. He wore blood red jeans and black shoes. This news was celebrated by everyone in the guild, but Makarov was just annoyed by this. Laxus was originally a member of the guild, but he was excommunicated after he tried to take over the guild for his own selfish ambitions. He didn't return until the fight between Fairy Tail and Grimoire Heart, a dark guild, occurred on Tenru Island. Gildert's next move, hilariously enough, was to nominate Makarov as the 6th master. Everyone agreed without hesitation, much to Makarov's shock and horror. Gildertz explained that he was not cut out for being master. He liked traveling around and seeing new places and having an adventure. He liked being a free bird, but he would stay to help the guild reach the top again. Plus it gave him time to hang out with his newly revealed duetter, Kana. He looked around to find her in her usual spot. She had her traditional bikini top with maroon jeans and black heels. She had her wavy brunette hair down and was doing her usual pastime. Drinking barrels of alcohol on her own. How she drank all that beer and not get sick was a mystery to her father. Hell, 30% of the guild's alcohol bills came from her alone. But the man did love his daughter to death, a little too much in Kana's eyes, since he kept being a little too clingy for her own comfort. Though everyone else was enjoying the banter between the two. Everyone overall was enjoying their time together again. Well, everyone except for one. She sat at one of the tables to the far end of the guild. She was a petite girl in her early teen years. Her straight dark blue hair was hanging down to her waist. She was wearing a flowing green dress with a diamond pattern and wore ankle-tied sandals. Her dark brown eyes stared at the heart-shaped red jewel around her neck in deep wonder. This was Wendy Marvell. The Sky Dragon Slayer and the biological daughter of Acnologia. Something that only a select number of people knew about. This select number of people included the girl herself. She had found out during her younger years when he used to visit her on occasion. The last time she saw him was nearly a year before she joined Fairy Tail. That's why she was not scared when he appeared on Tenru Island. Shocked and amazed at his appearance and power. Yes. Scared and petrified. Not even close. The reason she knew that was her father was because of the jewel around her neck. It was his last present before he disappeared. It let her know that he was alive somewhere and it would glow a bright red whenever he was close by. So it made it easy to identify him, even in his dragon form. What confused her was why he was there. He had no purpose there unless it was related to Grim or Harder Zareth, but they had disappeared before he arrived. Something that must have annoyed him to no end, she mused. Then his unexpected attack on the entire guild. Well, attack wouldn't be the right word. More like him toying around with everyone. Gilderts had told them his fight against Acnologia lasted less than 3 minutes before Acnologia ended it swiftly with one strike, taking Gildert's leg, arm and pieces of his organs. He did wonder how he even survived and if someone saved him from the dragon. Wendy knew better than that and her suspicions were confirmed on Tenru Island. Acnologia was having fun with them. He was testing them to see if they were worth his time. You would think spending time with your daughter would take priority, then again she couldn't shout out "Dad" in front of everyone. The number of questions she would be bombarded with would make her brain blow a fuse. Plus she did not know how her friends would react and worse what the Magic Council would do to her if they ever heard that one of the most powerful and feared beings in the world had a child. She shuddered at the thought. That was probably one of the reasons he kept his distance from her. To erase any connection the two had. But her quiet mood was not because of not being able to talk to her father. It was how easily he took everyone down. Everyone threw everything they had including the master and yet they could not make a dent in him. Hell, she saw him smirk at them when they began their assault on him. He was mocking them. Showing them how powerless they were compared to him. Hell, this guild had 4 Dragon Slayers and yet not one of them was able to land a scratch on his entire body. All they managed to do was send into the ocean. Something that did nothing to him and he seemed even more entertained than before. That was a blow to her pride as a Dragon Slayer. Then he charged and fired his breath attack at them, a breath attack that was not even at full power. The only reason they got out with little damage was thanks to Master Mavis and Fairy Sphere activating. What utter and complete bullshit. Yes, the first master did save them, but Acnologia wasn't going all out on them. He could have blown the island when it appeared in his line of vision, he did not have to land on the island. Hell, when he did he never blasted them. He just stomped and huffed everything around him. The biggest thing that proves that her father had no intention of hurting them was that no one died. Anyone that got hit by him did not die, hell, no one lost a limb. Did no one find that strange? He did not see them as any kind of threat, which made the young girl frown. She never told anyone this, but she always wondered if her team saw her as a burden. She was not the best fighter and more a supportive member than a combat specialist like Natsu, Gray, and Urza. Plus she was not all that strong. Her best spells were her enhancements and healing spells. Whenever she fought a strong opponent she was always pushed behind and watched as someone else beat the bad guy. Whether it was the battle with Eurasian Sais, the Dragonoid, the battle with King Faust in Adolas, and the disaster in Tenru, she was always left behind and had to rely on others for everything. She gripped her hands tighter. She was so tired of being weak. She needed to get stronger. But how could she get stronger without the proper teacher? She was cut from her musings when she hears someone calling her name. She looked up to see her team looking at her strangely. The first was a boy in his late teens, he had spiky pink hair. He had slitted black eyes and his body was lean and muscular. He was wearing a one-sleeved long black overcoat with gold trimmings. He had a brown belt tied around his waist with white trousers and black sandler. The noticeable attire on the boy was the white scarf around his neck and his exposed right arm with the emblem on his shoulder. This was Natsu Dragniel, the Fire Dragon Slayer. The second was blonde-haired woman with large brown eyes. She had an impressive blossom and a very curvaceous body that was the envy of many of the guild. She had the guild symbol on the back of her right hand in pink. This was Lucy Hertfilia, a celestial spirit mage. The next person was a boy also in his late teens with spiky black hair, dark blue eyes, and with a scar right above his left eye. He was shirtless, making it easy to see he had a muscular build like Natsu. He had the guild mark on his right pectoral muscle. He wore a silver necklace that resembled a sword with a stone on the hilt of the blade. He had dark cargo pants with black boots. This was Grey Fullbuster, an ice molding mags and the guild's residential stripper. The third was another female with a similar builder, but with a slightly lean and muscular build. She had long scarlet hair that reached her waist. She had a light complexion with dark brown eyes. She wore silver armor around her chest and arms. She had a blue skirt with dark brown boots. She had a blue guild emblem on her left arm. This was Urza Scarlet, Titania, the Fairy Queen, an S-rank mage and the strongest female of the guild. The last person looked like he was in his early 20s like Laxus. He had long spiky black hair that was slicked back at the front. He had red eyes with slitted pupils. He had no eyebrows with 3 metal studs in place of them. He also had studs on both his firearms, 2 below his chin, 4 as piercings on his ears and 2 on the sides of his nose. He wears the guild emblem on his left shoulder in black. He wore a black sleeveless tunic with beige pants tucked inside black boots that reach his calves. He also had black gloves on with studs. The most distinguishing feature was the black wing-like ornament on his right shoulder that was attached to his tunic by a large stud. This was Gadgil Red Fox, the Iron Dragon Slayer. There were 3 cats with wings alongside the mentioned mages. One was male with light blue fur called Happy, a female with white fur called Carla and Wendy's partner and best friend, and finally a black cat called Panther Lily. Wendy was surprised to see them before smiling at them, momentarily forgetting her dark thoughts, and said hello to everyone. "So everyone, why are you all here?" she politely asked. Everyone frowned before turning to Carla. "Wendy, everyone is here because they have been worried about you." Wendy looked strangely at them. "Why are you all worried about me?" Carla just looked annoyed. "Because child, for the last 3 weeks you have been rather quiet, keeping your distance from everyone. When anyone sees you, you're in the back of the guild all by your lonesome staring at your necklace. We're worried about you, Wendy." Wendy dropped her head. She didn't mean to have everyone worried about her, she just had a lot on her mind. Everyone, I just had a lot on my mind these last few weeks." Everyone looked at each other before looking at the sky dragon again. "Wendy." She looked to see Natsu and Gadgil staring at her. "Does this have to do with Acnologia?" Wendy flinched. "Wendy, I know you're feeling frustrated at how we got rocketed by that bastard. He made us look like we were nothing, even us Dragon Slayers could do nothing against him. He made all of us feel powerless weaklings." Wendy began shaking. "We all feel the same way. All of us took a shot to our pride. He made us look like we were nothing but insects that he was trying to swat. He showed us that there are a lot more powerful beings in the world that we haven't seen yet, which is why there is a bright side to this." Wendy and everyone looked at him funny. "He screwed up by not finishing us off. Now we have the chance to get stronger and become the strongest guild in Fiore again. Then we'll find that scaly bastard and kick his ass for real. We will show him that you never should underestimate Fairy Tail. Who's with me?" Everyone cheered in agreement and even Wendy got back to her normal mood. Then Lucy looked at Wendy and the jewel around her neck. "Hey Wendy, I was wondering where did you get that necklace? It's beautiful. I've had it for a long time. It was gift that I got when I was still in Kate's shelter." "Who gave it to you?" Urza asked curiously. Wendy smiled. "My 2chan gave it to me." This surprised everyone except Carla, who scowled at the mention of Wendy's father since they thought she was an orphan like the other Dragon Slayers. "Wait, you have a dad? I thought you were like us." Natsu began. "An orphan raised by a dragon." Wendy finished. Natsu nodded awkwardly since you don't bluntly remind anyone of being an orphan. By the looks of it, everyone else they felt the same and Urza made her dislike verbally clear by smacking him over the head. "Natsu, you don't just say whatever comes to your head. Think before you speak. Now apologize to Wendy." Ezra scoldingly said to the teen. Natsu grumbled but complied before apologizing. Wendy giggled and shook her head telling him it was okay. "You see, my 2chan was the one who left me in the care of Grandini. But I was raised by him till I was around 3 or 4. After that I only saw him on occasion when he checked up on me at Kate's shelter. He was rather secretive about himself, he didn't even tell me he was my dad. But I knew. I recognized his scent, plus I might have eavesdropped on some of his conversations with Master Rabble." Everyone chuckled at that. "The last time I saw him was nearly a year before the whole Oration Says incident. He gave me this necklace and said no matter how far he was, he would always be by my side. That was the last time I saw him and now 7 or 8 years have passed." She finished explaining. She could not tell them that he was on the island. At least not yet. This made everyone smile, but also wonder what kind of person Wendy's father was. Carla merely scoffed. She never liked that man. He always very secretive and told Wendy nothing about him or her mother. In her eyes, that man was suspicious hooligan that had no right to be Wendy's father. It was one of the many things that the two always argued about, but she decided to stay quiet this one time. "Hey Wendy, do you know what the necklace does?" Lucy asked. "Well, he said that the necklace was connected through a complex combination of sealing and rune magic. The necklace is connected to his life force. As long as it's bright red, he's alive. If it's black, that means something is wrong with him, and if it shatters, that means he's dead. Oh, he also said that if it ever glows a bright red, it means he is nearby." Everyone was impressed at the skill Wendy's father had. He must be a very powerful mage. If only they knew. Sealing and rune magic in unison. That is an impressive feat. Only someone of Freed's Kleber or more could do that. Your father must be a master in the sealing arts, Wendy. Urza said impressed. Wendy beamed at her. Hi, my 2-chan is the strongest mage I know. No could be able to beat him. I bet I could beat him easily. Natsu boastfully claimed. Wendy just giggled at her fellow Dragonslayer's antics. Oh Natsu-san, but I have seen you at your best and when you're pushed to your limits and beyond. My dad has no limits and is probably one of the strongest mages, if not the strongest in the entirety of Earthland. So you have a long way before you could realistically challenge him. Everyone looked at the girl oddly. Was her father really that powerful or was this just hype to make him seem bigger than he actually was? Again, if only they knew just who was her father. Gadgil just smirked before getting in front of Wendy and patting her on her head. Hehehe. Looks like our little Wendy is a daddy's girl. Right. Gadgil teased. Wendy blushed and pouted, mumbling that she was not. This caused everyone to laugh at the girl's expense. After calming down, Ezra explained that they were going to visit the medical mage, Perusica. When Wendy asked why, they explained she may have an idea of how they can get stronger in a short amount of time. Wendy nodded and the rest of Team Natsu left to visit the recluse in her home at the edge of Mongolia. Gadgil and Lily decided to stay in case of a fight occurred in the guild. When the team met Perusica, she was less than welcoming. She was an elderly in her late 80s like Makarov. She had hot pink hair with 2 bangs on the front of her head and the rest in a bun with 2 gold ornaments on its sides. She had blood-red eyes. Her most noticeable attire was a high-collar blood-red cloak with fangs on the top of the collar. She told the mages she wanted nothing with humans and to leave her alone. When they continued to persist, she came out with a broom swinging around screaming for them to get off her property. The mages ran away in shock and fear, but Wendy looked back to the screaming women, she seemed familiar. When they were given a chance to breathe again, everyone were still shocked at how violent Perusica was towards them. Carla then saw the distress look on Wendy's face. When she asked, everyone was shocked when she began to burst into tears. She explained that her aura and scent were very familiar. The flavor reminded her of the sky dragon, Grandini. This shocked everyone and asked if she was sure, which she nodded. They began the debate of Perusica possibly being the one that raised Wendy. Lucy debunked this because Perusica has been around since Makarov's time and always stayed near forests. But the dragons have been around for a much longer time and they all disappeared on July 7, X 777. That makes it 14 years since the dragons disappeared for the Dragonslayers. This meant that it would make no sense that the two were connected. Wendy explained that while the two had the same aura and scent, her tone and attitude were complete opposites of one another. That was when Perusica appeared behind them, shocking the team. She explained she was not the Grandini she was looking for, but she was her in some way. She explained she was from the parallel world, Idolas. In Idolas there is a parallel version to everyone in Earthland. Perusica was the Idolas version of Grandini. Something that shocked everyone. Natsu asked if Igniel, Metallicana, and the other dragons had human counterparts. Perusica said she did not know, since she never met them. She explained she was stranded here decades ago. That was when she met Makarov and he helped her settle on this new world and she has been here ever since. She then drops the bomb that she has spoken to the sky dragon herself through her magic. She looked at Wendy and said if she wanted to get stronger then she should learn these spells. She then brings out 2 paper albums. She explained the first one had 2 Dragonslayers' secret arts for her to learn. She then said the other one was given to her, shockingly, by her father in person. This got Wendy's and the entire group's attention. Wendy immediately asked if she knew where he was, but she sadly shook her head. However, he did leave a message for her. "Et stronger might I be heim. The day we meet again is fast approaching." Wendy was blushing in embarrassment at the nickname, while the girls gushed at the cute name, while the guys simply laughed. After giving her the spells, Perusica decided it was time to return home. Wendy got out of her embarrassed and bowed in gratitude to the old mage and called her Grandini. As she walked away, Perusica could not stop the smile that adorned her face as she walked back home. When the team returned to the guild, they saw Mikao arguing with his son Romeo. Romeo explained that the quickest way to become the #1 guild was to participate in the Grand Magic Games. It was created by the council as a way for the guilds to compete and prove they are the strongest and avoid unnecessary guild wars. However, Fairy Tail had always lost every time the guild entered. Plus the games were always different for each year. Romeo then explained the winner gets 30 million jewels, which got the master to declare they were competing. Everyone got excited and were ready to win. Romeo explained that the games begin in 3 months. That was plenty of time to catch up and get ready for the games. Wendy was excited to get a chance to learn her new spells. Team Natsu decided to go to a training camp. They were accompanied by Juvia and Team Shadow Gear, consisting of Levi McGarden, Jet, and Droy. Levi was a petite girl with shoulder-length blue hair with a yellow bandana tied around her head and wearing an orange tank top. Jet was a young man with orange hair tied in a spiky ponytail, and Droy was very obsessed man with black in an odd style, with having a tuft of hair on top of his head extending upwards, then curving forward like a plant stem. He ate along with Happy and Charla, then set out to get stronger. There was only one place to go for such serious training. The beach. Drunken beach night and family reunion. The training camp. That was the point of them going to the beach. A place where they could eat, sleep, relax and train without any interruptions. The first 5 days were just like that. Team Natsu, Team Shadowgear and Juvia all enjoyed morning relaxation, but worked as hard as possible during the afternoon and late evening. Natsu did several laps while having weights attached to his back, Lucy worked with her celestial spirits, Capricorn, to have better control of her magic, Ezra was working on her swordsmanship, Wendy was trying to decipher the spell she was given with Levi helping her. They even worked together to smash projectiles of ice that Gray created for them to practice on. They were slowly getting better control of their magic. In 3 months they were gonna be ready for anything. Little did they know that this night and the following day would be anything but normal. It was now nighttime, and the group was enjoying some relaxation in the hot springs on the tropical hotel they were staying in. Juvia, hurry up. Lucy called out to her while basking in the warm sensations of the water. Wendy was blushing a fierce red for 2 reasons. 1, the hot water was getting to her head. And 2, she was staring at Urza Scarlet's completely naked body. Though a large amount of jealousy was creeping in as she stared at Urza's chest. She unconsciously put her hands over chest and to her dismay, barely felt anything. Why does everyone have a bigger chest than me? It's not fair. She wailed in her head. That was one problem Wendy could never overcome. Her envy of every female in the guild having a bigger chest than her. It became worst when she met her Adola's counterpart. Her twin was not a petite girl. Nope. Not even close. She was an attractive woman in her late teens to early 20s. She had curves all over her body and wore some tight-fitting clothing that showed all her feminine attributes. The most noticeable feature was the 2 mounds of flesh on her chest. She had big breasts. They were at least DD's borderline S, meaning they could give Lucy and Urza a run for their money. If her counterpart had big breasts, why didn't she have? It only got worse when the guild's painter Riedus, a fellow mage, drew pictures of how everyone would look like in 7 years. Wendy's portrait left much to desired. While she did look mature, her chest was completely flat like a board. It was a blow to the young girl's self-esteem. Before she delved deeper in thoughts, she hears Lucy calling her to look at the sky. She looks up with everyone else to see several stars falling from the dark heavens above. Elsewhere every other member of the guild that left to go train like the Thunder Tribe, the Takeover Trio and Kana, Gaji Len Lily, and even a certain blonde, were watching the streaks of light descend from the skies. They all looked with eyes full of passion, joy, and most of all hope. Hope for a brighter tomorrow. Back in the hot springs, Urza suddenly hears a noise around the wooden fence and throws several daggers at the wall. Everyone asked what that was about. She explained she thought she heard something and wondered if the boys tried taking a peek at them. This mortified Levi and Wendy and pissed off Lucy something fierce. Juvia was in denial that her Grey Sama would do something like that. Urza just looked amused and said she was gonna fetch them so they could join them with the girls all gawking at her with Lucy trying in vain to stop her. Meanwhile over the fence, Natsu, Gray, Jet and Roy were all semi-unconscious from the surprise dagger attack to their heads. Completely worth it Natsu, Gray and Jet thought. Droy was in too much pain to think such thoughts because of the dagger that struck his ass. Something that confused the others on how the hell he was hit there in the first place. A few hours later. Later that night, the girls invited the boys to some drinking. The boys agreed but wanted to wait until they recovered to join. However, the scene they came upon when they went to visit the girls was something from a horror show. The girls had apparently gotten sick of waiting and decided to start drinking before the boys arrived. Unfortunately they had finished all 7 bottles of sake they had and were now blissfully drunk. Lucy was swaying with a big smile on her face, Levi was laughing at anything in her line of sight, Juvia was crying hysterically at Wendy's unconscious body, Wendy was pass out with swirls in her eyes speaking incoherently, Carla was being very bossy, and Urza was irritated. What the hell is going on? They all shouted in unison. Suddenly an empty sake bottle came flying at them. They quickly ducked their heads with the bottle barely missing their heads before shattering on the wall. Shut the hell up you wimps. You dare make us wait forever and don't even consider bringing more booze. Useless. That's what you lot are. Urza continued to rant off with the guys looking on with blank stares. Gray then moved to whisper in Natsu's ear. Natsu, this is not a good situation. I say we slowly sneak out and let them burn the alcohol out of their systems. Natsu nodded. Agreed. Let's. Before he could finish another bottle came flying and hit Gray on the temple and causing him to tumble to the floor. Gray Natsu screamed in shock at seeing his rival best friend on the ground nursing the lump on his head. What the hell are you two whispering about? If you have time to talk then you have time to get more sake. Urza roared at them, looking even more pissed. Haha, Urza is so angry. Her face looks like a tomato. Lucy giggled out. Ahahaha, tomato. You really are silly, Lu-chan. Levi laughed out and continued to do so. Urza then came stomping and grabbed Roy by his hair. And you, when the hell you get so fat, Wakaba, I am going to make you run until you burn all that fat and you won't stop until you're back in shape. Urza, I'm dead Roy. Roy got out, even though he was positively terrified. Urza was already quite terrifying when she was sober, but a drunk Urza was even worse. He'd rather face Acnologia than the drunk Scarlet Mage in front of him. A loud sneeze could hurt in the holy mountain range of Fiori. Urza seemed to ignore him and grabbed the kneeling Jet and dragged the two to the other side of the room. Natsu was watching in stunned silence since he could do nothing to save his fellow guildmates. He looked over to Gray when he heard him yelp. He saw Juvia hugging his arm while trying to get him to drink. Gray-sama, have a drink with me. Aye, he stammered out, causing Juvia to get teary-eyed again. Gray-sama, you never looked at her when she was in her bikini. And just now you were only focusing on Urza-san. Am I not appealing to you? She asked, pushing her body closer to his. Gray gulped as he saw Juvia's breasts jiggle behind the loose-fitting kimono she was wearing. He wouldn't deny that she was beautiful and her body was appealing, but this was not how they should get closer. Juvia, it's not that. It's just he was cut off when Juvia's lower half began turning into water. If you won't drink with me, then you should just drink me. Now Juvia was on top of Gray, hugging him down by the waist as her liquid body began to spill all around them. Ah! Someone help me. Gray cried in vain. Natsu was gonna call Happy, but he was playing horsey with Cheryl. With him being the horse. Move it, you snail. You're supposed to be fast like a steed. I demand you to fly faster. Cheryl commanded. Aye. Happy said weakly, being completely submissive to his crush. Natsu just sweat dropped. Even Cheryl. He thought. He then felt a stare at his person and looked down to his side to see Lucy staring at him intently. Lucy, he asked in worry. Lucy continued to stare in her blurry vision. Then she began to see split vision with two Natsus in her line of sight. Yay, there are two Natsus. She squealed in delight with hearts around her. Levi then appeared next to her, laughing, telling that she was crazy. Natsu just continued to stare but gained a blush when Lucy sounded so happy calling his name. Natsu say ah. Lucy cooed as she held an egg omelette by her chopsticks. This is not your character, Natsu yelled at her. Lucy then went to a corner in slight depression. Natsu is mad at me. Huh? He asked in confusion. I just wanted to give you an egg omelette. Omelette. Hey Lucy, I'm not mad, not at you, honest. Natsu said, trying to cheer up his partner. She turned to him and asked if he meant it. Honest? She asked hopefully. Honest? Lucy smiled, which he returned gratefully. Things were looking up for him. Then pet me. And then they downhill just as fast. Excuse me? He asked in confusion. Pet me? She asked again. Natsu's eyebrow twitched as he stared at her in confusion. Pet you? He asked, making sure he heard right. She then pointed to her chin. Pet me? He continued to stare before finally relenting and petting her chin. Lucy then began to purr in delight. NYA Natsu is the best. She purred out as two cat ears appeared on her head. That was the last straw for Natsu as he stood up and screamed in frustration. Erge. This is a fairy tale emergency. All male members assemble. Natsu looked around and did not like the sight before him. Jed was under Urza's foot and Droy had one of her swords at his throat. Happy was still being Charles's horse. Julia was now straddling Gray while trying to kiss me, with Gray barely being able to stop her. Natsu was literally the last man standing. Natsu then felt someone wrap his arms around him. He turned to see Lucy with a small smile. Natsu? Piggyback. Piggyback. No. Way. In. Hell. He stammered out slowly. Natsu, I need to go to the bathroom. Take me there. As if. Levi then came laughing. Natsu, go take her and do your best. Grrrr. Natsu growled before grabbing her and taking her to the bathroom. Natsu, remember to use protection. Good luck. Levi shouted. Above the support bins of their cabin, a single individual was sitting. She sat with her legs swinging down as she drank her own bottle of sake. It was Mavis Vermilion. She decided to follow Team Natsu to the beach since they seemed like the group that would be the most entertaining. Plus she was able to watch his daughter and see what she was like. He only spoke about her on rare occasions and this was golden opportunity for her to get to know her. But now she was just enjoying the spectacle before. Her guild had really become a wonderful place. Good luck, a cup. Mavis giggled as she saw the fire mage rush out of the bathroom. Natsu was annoyed, no pissed off. This day had gone from great to shitty in just a few hours. The girls getting drunk and taking the boys one by one until he was left. Now he was taking Lucy to her futon so she can go to sleep and get the alcohol out of her system. As he looked at her form in the futon, he remembers Livy's advice about protection. He blushed thinking about the repercussions of her statement. He would deny that Lucy was one of the most attractive girls in the guild. It didn't help that he has always been around her for the entirety of her time since she joined the guild. Plus he's seen her naked more times than any partner or platonic friend should see. He'll admit that he thought Lucy was cute, but he never said out loud. But as more time passed, that cuteness turned into something bigger. This became even more apparent after their return from their 7-year coma. He couldn't get Lucy out of his head and was always making sure she was either in his line of sight or that he was near her at all times. He also noticed that he growled loudly when some random guy would make some cat calls to her. He had an idea of what he was feeling, but he still wasn't positive. Big Neil had taught him that his emotion can dictate his actions towards someone. When he was feeling a burning sensation for someone of the opposite sex, it meant he had an infatuation for that person, possibly love. Now Natsu was a great many things. Loud, brash, annoying, headstrong, stubborn, sadistic on occasion, and a little perverted. But he was not stupid. A little naive with some idiotic tendencies, yes. But he was not stupid. He was suddenly cut from his train of thought when he felt a hand grab his and drag him down. What the hell? He asked before his voice died in his throat as looked up at the perpetrator. Lucy was staring at him with an unreadable expression. But what shut him up was the fact that Lucy was currently straddling him. "LLL Lucy," he stammered. Said blonde closed the distance before getting close to his ear. "Natsu, I'm feeling rather cold. Why don't you fire up and keep me warm?" She whispered seductively into his ear. Natsu was feeling the heat rise to both of his heads and trying his best to cool down his other head. He gulped as Lucy rose again to look at him. And began blushing when he noticed that her clothing was getting loose and dropping by her shoulders and giving him a better view of her breasts. Even after seeing it so many times, it was still a sight to behold. She then saw her descend again, but this time to his face. He could see her moist pink lips were slightly parted, allowing her tongue to come out and slowly lick them. He was completely mesmerized and didn't notice that his face was moving closer to her. "Loose. Natsu." Then their lips met. Natsu stiffened as he felt something akin to lightning passing through his entire body. It wasn't like Laxus's lightning that caused him pain. This was sending him pleasure. A lot of pleasure. And he wanted more. He delved deeper into Lucy's mouth. Lucy moaned but offered no resistance. He licked her lips demanding entrance from her. She quickly gave into that sensation and Natsu dove right in. They began wrestling with their tongues, feeling more pleasure all over their bodies. The heat was getting to them as they to roam each other's bodies with their hands. Eventually they parted to allow themselves to breathe. Both were panting heavily but continued to stare at one another. During their intense mask-out session, Lucy ended being on the bottom and Natsu on top. Her chest was heaving up and down, her lips were wet with a trail of saliva going down the side, her hair was all over and her eyes were clouded. Clouded with lust. Lust for him and him only. She couldn't look any more appealing than she did now. And he probably looked the same for her. Natsu then saw the belt holding was loose and ready to come off. He put his hands on the belt before looking up to see her reaction. She merely gave him a smile as his signal. Just as he was about to dive in, he heard screaming and turned to the sources. Gray, Jet and Roy were running towards, all sporting different marks on them. Gray had several kiss marks all over his face, lips and chest. He had a flustered look on his face, but his eyes were filled with terror. Jet and Roy all had bruises and cuts all over there, probably from Urza having another tantrum and them being the target of said tantrum. All heading straight for him in his compromising position with Lucy. "Natsu, help. Urza has lost it completely, we need to," Gray began to say, but it died in his throat as he saw the position the pink mage was in with his blonde partner. Jet and Roy were also gawking at the duo. "This isn't what it looks like. She just got on top," and Natsu began to say, but was cut off by the guys. "You mean to tell us while we were suffering over there you were getting all lovey-dovey with Lucy?" they exclaimed in unison. "No. I mean yes. I mean ish," Natsu stammered, unable to find a proper response on how he got in his current position. He then felt a smooth soft legs wrapped around his waist. He looked down to see Lucy with a mischievous glint in her eyes. Lucy," she just smiled. "Come on Natsu, let's continue from where we left off. An audience just makes it more exciting," she said as she licked her lips. Before any of the guys can comment, they heard some stomping and they turned to see the source, only for the guys to pale in fright. It was Urza with a rather large silver broadsword in her hand. "Where the hell did you guys go? You can't leave my prescience without permission," she growled out in rage. She then noticed the position Natsu was in within. All the guys felt a chill as a dark aura enveloped Urza. "Natsu. She spoke ominously with each letter. You dare take advantage of Lucy, have you no shame? Wait, it's not like that. However, his pleas were unheard as Lucy just giggled and held him closer. Natsu, she purred. That seemed to be the last straw for Urza. Suddenly her magic spiked and several swords appeared all around her. All of them pointing at all the boys. The boys were now shaking in fear. You boys like playing, huh? Well, let's play. She screamed. Ah. We're Suori. Sumi oni savius. The boys screamed to the heavens. It was gonna be a long night before the boys will get any amount of peace. If any at all, that is. The next morning. The following day, all the girls woke up with a pounding headache from all the drinking they had last night. This made training a no-go for that morning and most of the early afternoon. When none of them could recall what happened last night or what they did, they decided to ask if any of the guys remembered what happened. However, what they found was not what they expected. The boys were all huddled in a corner of their room with an air of depression all over them. They had multiple bruises, black eyes and cut all over their bodies, and their robes were looking like paper match. When they asked what happened, the boys refused to answer. Eventually they said that they all got seriously drunk and had a big brawl that ended in their current state. They then said nothing happened afterwards. The girls knew that was a lie, but when they pressed for more answers, the boys clamped down, refusing to say anything. So the matter was dropped. For now anyway. One thing Lucy did notice was that every time she made contact with Natsu, he would blush and be unable to look at her. The same could be said with Juvia and Gray. This confused the two girls and wondered if they did something, but knew they wouldn't tell them. Later that afternoon, everyone was enjoying some relaxation for the day. Wendy, Jet and Roy decided to get some ice cream from the snack bar. When they asked if the others wanted something, they replied no and decided to wait for them before they started to train. Suddenly the ground under Lucy burst upwards in a small geyser. Hi! Lucy screamed in complete shock as she fell on her butt from the unexpected sand tower. Everyone got on edge thinking this was a new enemy, but that soon ended when they saw who caused the sand tower. It was a female in her late teens. She had short hot pink hair with a light complexion and sky blue eyes. Her attire consisted of a maid's outfit with cuffs on her wrists. Her attire seemed to complement her feminine curves and noticeable cleavage. It was Virgo, one of Lucy's celestial spirits. Virgo, Lucy shouted in shock. Everyone relaxed after seeing it was someone they recognized. It's a pleasure to see you again, mistress. You look well. Virgo responded. Virgo, what's going on? Why are you here? Virgo looked down. Mistress, I ask that you come with me to the celestial spirit world. The king wishes to speak with you and your friends. It is very important that you all come with me. The celestial spirit king wants to speak with us, Lucy shouted in shock. The other members of Team Natsu and Juvia were also shocked. For the celestial king to want to speak with them. It must have been something very serious. Virgo, what is happening in the celestial world that the king needs my help? Lucy asked in a worried tone. Virgo merely frowned before dropping her head. Please, mistress. It is of the utmost importance that you come with me, along with your friends. Everyone looked at each other, silently debating what to do. Please, I must hear your decision now, mistress. I can't wait anymore. Lucy and everyone else looked towards the celestial maid. Virgo, take us to the celestial world. We won't let our precious comrades down. You can count on us. Lucy spoke enthusiastically, everyone else had confident smirks plastered on their faces. Virgo smile. Then let's not waste any more time and head to the celestial spirit world. Wait. Can normal humans enter the celestial spirit world? Lucy asked as a magic circle appeared below all of them. Don't worry, mistress. I will provide clothes for all of you once we arrive. Just then they all disappeared in a flash of light. Celestial spirit world. When the group regained their bearings, they were astounded by what they saw. The sky was filled with thousands upon thousands of stars. In the night sky, several planetoid-shaped objects floated around the heavens. They could even see what looked like pirate ships sailing in the air. When they looked around, they saw they were standing on an asteroid as a platform. Around them were several bright crystals that glowed several different colors. Even the trees were made from the same material. In front was a gate that led to a stony pathway above an ocean with diverging paths to different locations. The mages also noticed that all their clothing belonged to the celestial spirit world. Lucy wore a blue dress with gold accents, a white bow around her neck, and a short blue skirt with navy stockings and gold and black shoes. Natsu wore a similar outfit, but with brown pants and boots. Levi wore a long green dress with a bandana around her head. Julia wore a short skirt white dress with loose white sleeves on her arms. Urza and Gray wore rather revealing clothing in green and silver. They were all amazed by the sight around them. This is the celestial spirit world, Lucy asked. Everyone were silently admiring the sight before them. Suddenly a tornado rose from the celestial sea. Welcome, my old friends. A calm voice boomed to them. The tornado dissipated to reveal a tall figure. His stature easily rivaled Acnologia at his full height. He was clad in a full set of plate armor. The upper part of his torso was covered in a chestplate, which was linked to the massive, overlapped and pointed pauldrons, while his arms were protected by counters, each sporting a spiked protrusion, and by gauntlets reaching up to his upper forearms. Underneath, he wore a dark chainmail. A dark belt with a simple squared buckle circled his waist, securing a light garment reaching down to his knees, open on the front to reveal the waist guard located underneath, consisting of two pointed plates, each resting on top of a rectangular leather section, with both such sections being secured in the middle by a belt bearing a more ornate buckle than the upper one. In a shape reminiscent of a four-leaf clover. He appears to be wearing dark pants, over which he dons cuisses secured by leather bands, pointed pollens, greaves, consisting of two distinct overlapped plates, and sabatons over barely visible dark footwear. He also sported an open helmet, adorned just above its opening by a stylized upside-down star, and with a small fin-like ornament jutting out from each side. The helmet had a pair of massive horns pointing upwards on its sides, as well as a plumage on top of it, consisting of 3 to 4 distinct feather-like ornaments, with thin starting sections enlarging into thick tufts. Secured around his neck by a light round clip with an end left hanging over his upper torso was a massive dark cape with extremely torn lower edges. It was fluttering in the air, despite the seeming lack of wind. The most distinguishing feature was his enormous white mustache that extended diagonally toward the lower parts of his torso. This was the Celestial Spirit King. The Celestial Spirit King, everyone shouted. He's huge. Natsu and Happy shouted. Everyone just stared in amazement at the king's size and power. Now my friends, now that you are here. He started to say as the area around him began to glow. Everyone else was tensing to find out why they were called here. We can begin the celebrations. As he said this, the spirits of the other zodiacs appeared, including Loki the Leo, a fellow mage of fairy tale. They all stared dumbfounded. Wait, Lucy. Shouted. Virgo said the celestial spirit world was in danger. What the hell, Virgo? Virgo just smirked. Oops. I lied. Lucy just stared in shock while the others laughed. My friends, I told Virgo to bring you all here so we can celebrate. Celebrate? They all thought. To celebrate your valiant return to the world after being absent for 7 years. To remind you, no matter how much time passes or how far away we are from one another, the bond we have is unbreakable. We will be friends so long as we celestial spirits exist. He boasted with 2 small fans, striking a hilarious pose with the other spirits roaring in approval. The fairy tale mages all roared and jumped at the celebrations. Natsu and Happy chatted with Aries and Cancer. Julia was being interrogated by Aquarius if she had a boyfriend, with Lucy looking on in pity. Levi was getting some material to read. Gray and Urza were enjoying the amazing food they were serving. While this was going on, the Celestial King sensed a huge magical source approaching the area his guests were originally located at. A very familiar magical source. So you have decided to make your appearance, my old comrade. Do your best, my old friend. Your journey will be dangerous and filled with darkness, but know this. I will stand by you once again like I did 400 years ago. He looked up to the heavens with a huge smile. Good luck, Naruto. Meanwhile, back in the beach. Wendy, Jet and Roy were staring at the empty space where their friends were in confusion. Where did they go? Jet asked. Wendy began to smell the air. It smells like celestial magic. Everyone must have gone with Lucy's spirits to some location. She said. Why did they not wait for us? Roy asked. It probably wasn't anything too big to warrant our help. Jet responded. Wendy nodded. We should probably keep training until they show up. They will probably be back by the end of the day. The boys agreed and decided to eat their meals before getting back to work. Wendy decided to seclude herself in the forest to practice some of her spells. She was now trying to smash a huge boulder with her new spell. She began to glow in a wide aura as she collected the magical energy for the spell. She places herself in a wide stance while spreading her arms outwards. Soon a wind barrier envelops the Wendy and the boulder. She then moves her arms counterclockwise as winds began moving inwards around her target. Mitsuryu Ogi. Shma Tenksen. Dragon Slayer's secret art. Shattering light sky drill. The funnel of wind enveloped the boulder. Soon the boulder began to shake. Slowly, but surely it began to rise into the air as several cuts appeared on its surface. Wendy tried to push the attack further, but she still did not have enough power to hold the spell, and she lost control as it dissolved. The boulder fell back down with a loud whoomp. Wendy was breathing heavily, exhaustion clearly taking over. This was her first attempt at the spell with only minor success. She still needed to build up her reserves so she can keep the attack under her control and do much more damage. She looked up to see the damage she had caused. The boulder had several cuts around it, but they were not really deep. The damage was superficial, but it was progress. If I can do this after only a few days, I can definitely improve in 3 months. I will master this magic and make Grandini and Tuchan proud of me. She thought with renewed vigor. Suddenly she begins to hear something. She focuses to find out that the melody was from a flute. The tune was very mysterious, but also had a tune of sadness, rage, regret, and above all else. Danger. Insert music. Zenaku's flute theme. She kept looking around, but the flute melody seemed to be coming from every direction. She could not pinpoint where the source was originating from. Wendy was not amused by this. In fact, she was downright irritated. She was not in the mood for this, she was still winded from that spell, but that doesn't mean she would go down without a fight. Come out and show yourself, you coward. Your music doesn't scare me. She shouted to the surrounding forest. Suddenly a red glow appeared below her. She looked down and was shocked to see her necklace glowing red. It couldn't be. She turns when she hears rustling of leaves and sees a figure approach her. The figure was male, at least 5'7". He looked to be in his late teens to early 20s. He had long black cloak with a silver zipper that reached below his waist. The coat had 2 silver adornments on the front sides of his hoodie and a chain connected the 2 sides of the coat across the front. As the cloak you could baggy black pants and black boots with knee guards. He had black gloves on as he held a black ocarina to his lips, his eyes closed. But what got Wendy's voice hitched in her throat and staring intently was the man's face. He had the same spiky blonde hair as she remembered and the same whisker marks on his cheeks. It was Naruto Marvell. Her biological father. End of theme. He stopped playing the flute before lowering his hands and opened his eyes. His slitted azure eyes stared at her dark brown. Wendy just continued to stare in silence until finally finding her voice she shakingly asked. "Oh Otu-sama." Naruto just gave a small, soft smile. "Hanban mai chai behind. How are you feeling?" Wendy did the only thing she could think at the moment. She fainted. Naruto stared in confusion at her form before releasing a small chuckle. "Like mother, like daughter. Right, Hinata-chan." He goes over before picking her up bridal style and carrying back to her cabin. They had a lot of catching up to do and little time to do so. The long overdue conversation. When Wendy opens her eyes, she finds herself staring at a ceiling fan in motion. She gets up to see that she is lying on a bed. She looks around to see that she is back in her hotel room and judging by the dark skies outside, it's well into the night. What happened? I remember training with the skill drill until. She then recalled who she saw before everything went black. Otu-sama. She screamed in her head before jumping out of her covers before looking around her, but to her dismay, it was empty. No one was there. She was there all alone. The girl felt her world crash down and soon felt hot tears began spilling down. Who am I kidding? I can't believe I imagined my Tuchan coming back for me. I'm so stupid. She berated herself for a long while about conjuring that dream before deciding to go outside and rinse off her face and take a night stroll. Imagine her surprise when she slides the door open to see her father standing there, reading a book in his hands. Wendy just stared in shock, hoping that this was not a dream and her father was really there. "Oh Otu-sama?" she asked weakly. Naruto looks from his book to see his daughter standing right in front of him. He puts his books down and dismisses it into his pocket dimension and slowly walks towards her. He bent down on one knee so he was at eyes length with her. He raises his hand to her, which causes her to flinch slightly. He slowly touches the back of her head before bringing in for a hug. "Yes, Wendy. It's your father." Wendy couldn't believe it. Her father was here. He was right in front of her, giving her a hug. New tears began to spill from her face, but these were tears of joy. She was finally reunited with her father after so many years. She began to sob into her father's shoulder as they continued to embrace him. Naruto felt his daughter's arms wrap themselves around his neck and hold on for dear life, as if he would disappear if she let go for even a moment. This saddened him, since he did not realize his absence had that much of an effect on her. However, considering she has been alone for most of her life like him, he shouldn't be surprised of how she reacted. She wanted her family. She wanted a mother that would be there to nurture her. Raise her. She wanted a father that would be there for her. Guide her. Protect her. In a sense, she was just like he was when he was her age. This made him feel worse, since he knew how much it meant to know anything about his family, even it was a tiny bit. Sure, she had Grandini, and he was alive and visited on occasion, but that is not a substitute for raising a child. Yes, he was there in the shadows watching her, but being there that also let him know about her fears and insecurities. How she wished her Tuchan and Kachan were there. How she longed to see them together as a family. It pained him greatly, but now he had an opportunity to make things right. He promised Hinata to be there for Wendy, and nothing in the entirety of Earthland or the other realms was going to stop him. After what seemed like hours he moved Wendy, so she was looking at him. Her eyes were getting red and puffy, her cheeks were moist from the waterfall of tears she spilled, and she was hiccuping a lot. If this was any other situation, he would think she looked absolutely adorable. Wendy. Hi. Why don't you get your face washed and get a change of clothes? We can get something to calm your nerves. What do you say? Wendy's eyes widen before nodding quickly and rushing to wash her face. Wendy couldn't believe it. Her father was actually here. And he wanted to spend time with her. She now had a lead to Grandini and the other dragons. She could even learn more about him and why he wasn't there for her. This was an opportunity she could not ignore. And maybe, just maybe, she'll even learn about her biological mother again. It took her no less than 30 seconds to wash her face and get dressed and standing in front of her father again. Naruto blinked when he saw how quick his daughter appeared in front of him. He had to mentally chuckle at her overexcitement. It reminded him of how he used to be once upon a time. Well, someone seems excited to walk with their daddy. I'm touched. He teased. Wendy blushed and began mumbling some incoherent words. Naruto chuckled again before ruffling her hair, making her pout even more. Well, let's go, the night is not getting any younger. The two then set out to the food center of the hotel. The pair purchased 2 large cups of hot chocolate. Wendy got one with cinnamon frosting, while Naruto got vanilla frosting. The two were sitting on the white sands of the beach, watching the slow waves of the ocean and gazing at the stars that lit the night sky. The two sat in an awkward silence, the only sound the two made was the slurping of their drinks. Naruto was enjoying the warm sensation his drink gave him as it went down his throat and into his stomach. It was one of the reasons why he liked hot chocolate as much as he used to love ramen. It was the warm sensation that he got as it filled his entire body. Although he hadn't touched ramen in 400 years, but what can you expect when you're sent to a new world before ramen was even created? Thinking about his old addiction reminded him about his past. A past that he tried so hard to forget. A past that no child should have to endure through. All because of human naivety, greed, and fear, his life was filled with nothing but darkness and emptiness. He feels a tug at his arm and looks to see daughter looking at him in concern. He realizes he had been releasing Kai for a brief time and Wendy had been concerned on what was on his mind to cause him to get so angry. Naruto shakes his head to get rid of his dark thoughts. He releases a long sigh before looking up at the sky again. Wendy was glad her father had calmed down, but now they were in this awkward silence again. It was really weird, but it was kinda expected. How do you start a conversation with someone you have been wanting to meet again for years, but have no idea where to begin? Finally Naruto decided to break the ice. I know you have a lot of questions, Wendy. You can ask me anything and I will try my best to answer them. I have so many questions, I don't even know where to begin. She replied. The beginning is always a good place to start. Wendy did not look amused by that response, but sighs before taking the advice and asking the first thing on her mind. Are you really, Acnologia? The black dragon of the apocalypse? I have lived for well over 400 years, my daughter. I have been given many names in all those years. Acnologia is merely one of many names I have earned. If you're a dragon, does that mean I'm half dragon? Not exactly. I became a dragon well after you were conceived and born. You're only partially dragon because of Grandini and becoming her dragon slayer. But what I am is rather complicated. What do you mean? She asked confused. Naruto sighed before he said he'll explain later on. Wendy decided to go to her next question. Why did you attack Fairy Tail on Tenru Island? Naruto looked at his daughter this time. Originally I came to the island to kill Zeref. That black mage owes me a debt that has been collecting interest for 400 years. I never meant your guild any harm, but I wanted to see the strength of your guild. I saw that human I fought on Mount Zonia, plus your guild had 4 dragon slayers, so I was hoping to get a good challenge. He sighed before he shook his head and continued. But you guys were a lot weaker than I expected, none of you could harm me. Let alone scratch me. It was rather disappointing. Wendy looked down already knowing how powerless they were before her father. But. Wendy snapped her head at the butt. I will say you guys have guts. You all knew that you had no chance against me. Your master knew this and that's why he ordered you to leave. But you ignored his plea and stood your ground against me. You all wanted to stand together and take me down as a family. Wendy was listening intently. In a way, I was happy. Happy because the ideals of Mavis Vermilion were still held in your hearts. It meant that all she went through to create Fairy Tail did not go in vain. You all attacked me and even managed to send me into the ocean. That gave me a surprise and did something that had not been done since my fight with Gildert's Clive. What was it? You guys ignited my spark again. My thrill for battle against a worthy opponent. Gildert's managed to do it for a moment. He was the first human able to do so in a very long time. And when I saw his guild mark, it piqued my interest even more. So I spared him and hoped you guys would come back to give me the same thrill I felt. And you did deliver, though it was short. It was the most fun I had in a long time. Wendy gave a blank stare. You do realize how much terror you put most of us? Not to mention the 7-year coma you sent us in. Wendy retorted. To be fair, I was not there to hurt any of you. The fact that none of you died or lost a limb should be proof of that. Gildert's lasted 3 minutes before he lost 2 limbs and got gutted. I fought all of you for well over 5 minutes and none of you got seriously injured. I could have done more damage than what I was doing, yet I didn't. That should prove I had no intention of harming any of you. Yeah, I know. None of us got really harmed from that fight. It was still a huge blow to our pride though. Plus you didn't even use your roar until you rose out of the sea. You had enough time to do it so many times, though I'm pretty sure me, the master, and Gilderts were the only ones to realize this. Wendy said. Yeah, that's true. Plus when I did launch my roar it was not at full power. I would say it was about 1/10. Then Fairy Sphere activated. To be honest, I only knew that it was a defensive spell. I had no idea it was gonna put you all in a coma for 7 years. Even if it did not activate, my roar would not have killed you all. Seriously, maim or injure? Yes. Kill? No. I knew you guys could handle it. Wendy sweat dropped at that response. That's pretty sadistic too, Chan. She said. Naruto shrugged. It's kin to part of my nature, my dear. That's what happens to you after 400 years of non-stop killing and destroying. Wendy's sweat drop got even bigger and decided to move on to her next question before she got a headache. Why weren't you there when I was growing up? Why did you leave me? Naruto sighed before looking down and answering. Wendy, you must understand. I am one of the most feared and hated beings that has ever walked this world, second possibly only to a select few. I am the literal personification of the apocalypse. I am death and darkness in its purest form. He then cupped her cheek with his left hand. But you were so pure, so innocent and sweet. The day you were born was the most important day of my life. You were so beautiful like your mother. You were born without a hint of malice or hatred. You were my ray of light in the darkness. But after everything I went through, after everything I did, I soon realized I had no right to have you near me. I did not wish for you to be tainted by my darkness. A life on the run was not the life that you needed nor deserved. I wanted to give you the one thing I was denied when I was your age. Wendy looked curiously. I wanted to give you a childhood. That's why I knew you would be happy with that old geezer Raoul. I knew he would treat you like any other child, regardless of your connection to me. He saw you as a surrogate granddaughter and he felt he was doing me a favor as one of the few friends I had. I wanted to give you the one gift any child should deserve. A happy childhood filled with people that love you. That is what any parent would want for their child. To live happily and to be loved. Wendy was shocked at that. Did her father really think he did not deserve to be with her? That he did not deserve some sort of happiness? It would have been better if you were a part of it, she said as she looked down. I know. I know just visiting on occasion was not the best solution. But it was the best I could come up with where I could watch you but keep my distance so I wouldn't get my scent on you. Wendy then took her dad's arm and hugged it tightly. It doesn't matter what you did. You went so far to keep me safe just so I can have a happy childhood. That shows that you're not just the monster that the world sees you as. For that I am grateful. Even though you were far away, you always visited and spent time with me. That made me happy to know my Two-chan did love me. So I'm glad to have you as my dad and I do love you too, Two-chan. Naruto just froze to hear those wonderful words from his daughter. She truly was a blessed soul just like her mother's. They both saw the good that was buried deep in the darkness. Just like Grandini, Anna and Irene. For some reason all the women in his life and his friends always saw the good in him even if he did not see it or if he deserved such kindness. Wendy, you don't know how much it means to me to hear such words from you. But I have not earned the right to hear those words. But I hope from this point on to become worthy of hearing them from you. He said as he brought her into a hug that she happily returned. The two stayed in that embrace until Wendy moved to ask her next question. Du-chan, what happened to Grandini and the other dragons? They all disappeared 14 years ago. You must know something. Naruto flinched at the question. Something that Wendy noticed. Why do you do that? When Natsu asked you the same question, I saw you flash through a myriad of emotions. You got angry, then sorrowful, and finally shame. Tu-chan. What happened? Naruto pinched his nose and released a heavy sigh. Something that was becoming a regular thing. Wendy, what happened to the other dragons was something that I did not wish nor did I want. They were my nakama. My family. But what happened was unavoidable regardless of what I or anyone else did. Wendy bit her lip and asked the question she was dreading. Did you kill them? Are they dead? Are Grandini, Igneal, and Metallicana dead? Wendy asked in fear. Naruto felt his heart shatter at his daughter's face, but pressed on. Wendy, what happened was not what I wanted to happen. But honestly, I don't know. I know what I did to them, but I have no idea where they are. I did not kill them. At least, not exactly. I honestly don't know where they are. That is the honest truth. Which was true. He did harm them, technically killed them, but they escaped and he has no clue where exactly they went. He has a possible theory, but he was not gonna give her false hope to have it crushed later on. So there's a chance she's still alive somewhere. Like I said. That is a maybe. I can't guarantee it nor deny it. Wendy sighed. It was not the answer she wanted, but it was better than nothing. Now Wendy, what were you doing here? I sensed your magical energy here, but I have no idea why. Wendy then explained how her guild had dropped in ranking to being the lowest in Fiori. They learned about Grand Magic Games and how it was the quickest way to reach the top again in no time. It was gonna occur in 3 months, which was plenty of time to get ready for the games. They came here to train and enjoy some quality. She explained they had made some progress, she even managed to do the sky drill after just a few days, something that made her father swell in pride. She then explained the whole Sake incident, something he scolded for doing and reminding himself to get the other members for their stupidity for allowing Wendy to drink. She then explained how she went to get some ice cream before she came back to find out that her team along with Juvia and Levi left through some celestial magic. Now I am just waiting for them to return. I wonder what's taking so long. She was getting slightly worried that her friends had not returned. Naruto just facepalmed at the stupidity of not only her friends but the Celestial Spirit King's antics. If it weren't for the fact I am friends with that Baka Clover King, I would beat him for his pranks. Now I have to break the ice with Wendy. Wendy, I hate to say it, but I don't think you will be seeing your friends anytime soon. Wendy looked worried and asked what did he mean. Wendy, after I left you in your room, I checked the area and sensed the celestial magic. But the thing is that specific residual magic led to the celestial spirit world. The issue is that time moves different in the celestial world compared to Earthland. Wendy titled her head in confusion. How different is time between the dimensions? She asked, curious at how different the dimensions worked relative to one another. Naruto sighed before he dropped the bomb. Well, 1 day in the celestial world is equal to 3 months in Earthland. Wendy just froze. What? I said you won't be seeing your friends for 3 months, which is about the time the GMC will commence. Wendy just stared with a blank, hollow stare. Naruto got worried and snapped his fingers in front of Wendy. Wendy? She screamed. You mean to tell me all that planning has gone down the toilet? What am I supposed to do? I can't get stronger on my own. She continued to vent in a cloud of sorrow. Naruto just looked at the spectacle of his daughter while getting a sense deja vu from himself and his queens. It was kind of scary. Wendy. I believe I have a proposition for you. This got the attention of the brunette girl. One of the reasons I came here was to ask you something. What did you want to ask me? Would you like me to train you? Wendy's eyes widened. Really? You would really train me? Naruto nodded. Yes, my dear, I want to train you to be the best you can be. I plan to work on your Dragon Slayer magic. I also have some offensive spells to give you some variety in combat. Sky dragons may not be the best when it comes to combat, but I believe I can make it up by teaching you drive mode and maybe even Dragonforce. Wendy had stars in her eyes and was right in front of her father. Really? Yes, I swear. Wendy then breathed before looking at Naruto seriously, which made him raise an eyebrow. If I agree, I have some conditions that you must swear to uphold. Can you promise me that? Naruto looked at her seriously, wondering what could she be thinking, but decided he needed to do this to gain her trust. I swear a blood oath to the dragons that I will uphold your conditions regardless of how insane or ridiculous the condition is. He swore seriously as thunder boomed in the clear, confusing several people on the beach. Wendy was shocked at how far her father would go, but decided to keep going and raised 5 fingers. First, you don't hold back or show any mercy to me. If I am going to be strong, I need you to push me to my limits and beyond. I am tired of being weak and right now you're the only one that can help me get stronger. Second, you tell me everything about yourself. And I mean everything. From the day you were born to your connection with Zeref and Master Mavis. Third, I want you to tell me about my biological Kachan. I deserve to know more about her and what happened to her. I can't really remember all the stories you used to tell me. You are the only one that can tell me about her. Fourth, I want to know what happened between you and the dragons. What turned you into the so-called monster that the world knows you as? Finally, I want to spend time with you. Not as teacher and student, but as father and daughter. I want to have some time to know you and have some precious memories with my 2chan. Naruto looked down, contemplating the requests. The requests were simpler than he expected, but they were gonna be opening wounds he desperately tried to forget, but he couldn't back out now. Some skeletons were gonna come out and he needed to accept it. He looked up at his daughter with unwavering eyes. I swear to uphold those conditions to the best of my ability. You have my word as a dragon. Wendy nodded before beaming a smile at him that made him chuckle. Alright. Naruto said as he stood up and looked at the dark horizon. Go pack your stuff and we can. He didn't even finish before Wendy bolted to her hotel room to get her belongings. It took her less than 5 minutes to get her things, leave a letter for her friends, and come back to the beach. Naruto had to wonder if Wendy inherited Minato's Hiraishin in her blood. He shook his head in amusement. He lifted his arm forward and a black and violet portal opened in front of the duo. He looked at his daughter. Ready? She nodded. Let's go. And the two entered the portal and it disappeared into the night as if it was never there. Unknown location. When Wendy gets her bearing, she sees herself surrounded in a forest. However, she noticed something is odd with the vegetation around her. The grass was a dark green color, the trees were black in color covered in blood, red leaves, and the bushes were also of similar color. She then looked up to see that the sky was not nighttime anymore, but was now a blood-red sky. She could even see blue and yellow lightning soaring through the sky. Even the air tasted differently. It was heavier and had an odd flavor to it. Overall, she was getting odd vibes from her surroundings. Where had her father taken her? She jumps when she feels a hand on her shoulder. She looks to see her father looking at her. I can see that the environment is having an effect on you. When it's your first time visiting, this place can be overwhelming in a sense, he said. "Dusan, where have you taken me?" Naruto then looked forward with a sense of nostalgia in his eyes. This place is special to me and several dragons. It's called the Bloody Forest for the unique coloring of the vegetation. It's one of my favorite places to come to within the Makai. Wendy was frozen when she heard that. Did you say Makai? She asked. Naruto nodded. Yes. Makai, Demon World, Underworld, Netherworld, Niflheim, Reverse World, Distortion World, and more commonly, Hell. All of these names represent a specific area and when you take all these places together, you get the hell of this world. This place is one of many ruled by the death dragon, Giratina. Most dragons use this place to isolate themselves so they can train themselves without having to worry about collateral damage to unsuspecting victims in the vicinity. Only dragons or extraordinary mages are capable of finding it and actually get in, and the number of mages that know about this place is very small. I guess you could call it our version of Tenru. Wendy looked around in complete awe and wonder. She never thought that the so-called original homeland of demons devils would be controlled by the dragons. Then again she remembered that Grandini said that the dragons were one of the first beings born from within the universe and they molded into what it is today. So it's not too surprising one of them took refuge in hell as their domain. Dusan, why did you bring me here? She asked. Naruto smirked. I brought you here for our little training camp for several reasons. One is so we will not be interrupted by anyone. Like I said, this place is really isolated from anyone or anything, so the odds of meeting someone here is really unlikely. Meaning we can go all out with our training. Most importantly, like the celestial spirit world, time flows differently here. However, it's opposite to how the celestial spirit world works. 1 day in Earthland is equal to 4 days here. So training for 3 months is equivalent to 1 year here. Wendy was seeing stars. This was a perfect chance to really buckle down and train her butt off. Plus she will have someone that will push her to her limits and truly make her strong. So how is this training regimen going to work? Naruto looked thoughtful for a moment. First I will evaluate your skills. After I see all of your techniques, I will know how to train you. However, I already have some fields that I will work with you on. Wendy looked curiously at her father. What exactly will you help me in? She asked. Well, as I said, one of the things that I want to help you in is with your Dragon Slayer's magic. Specifically Drive Mode and possibly Dragon Force. Since Kai Dragon Slayer magic is not really combat heavy, I will help you get more offensive magics for you to use along with the transformations. In the physical aspects, I will help improve your speed, physical strength, sensory capabilities, and finally your hand-to-hand combat, so you have something to fall back to if you don't have any magical power available to you. Wendy nodded, seeing the logic in her father's ideas. But then she felt the hairs at the back of her neck rise in fear at the very sadistic and evil smile on Naruto's face. But make no mistake, my Chibi-Hime. I will make you train to the ground. You will sweat. You will bleed. You will cry. And I will laugh. You will know pain. I will make sure of that, Naruto said, chuckling evilly. Wendy was now wondering what she had gotten herself into. She gulped before staring back defiantly. I am not afraid, Tusan, she said with conviction. To her horror, her father's sinister smile seemed to increase even more and it began to get worse as he began to chuckle evilly. You will be, my daughter. You will be. He replied, chuckling evilly even more. Yup, Wendy was definitely wondering what she had gotten herself into. What if Naruto neglected by konoha Acnologia, and thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel and leave a like if you guys need the next part, comment down, and thanks for watching the video and see you guys in the next video.